Huh?
Want this on?
Oh, I don't care. I just knocked it off.
Are we podcasting? What's going on?
We've been podcasting.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, man, I'm talking about Will.
Which one is it?
happened?
Yeah, man, I'm talking about Will. It's one of the realest to try.
Hey, what's up?
What happened?
What episode are we?
What episode?
Pulling the
is
Thread podcast, episode
this?
15.
This is podcast 15.
Somebody said that Jocko tried to jack our name. Somebody asked last night, like, hey, what happened when Jocko tried to start a podcast with the same name as yours? And I said, well, I don't think he has. I don't know what you're talking about. But that's cool. If Jocko wants to come in here and discuss it, he can come on our podcast and we'll discuss with Jocko Willink. Willink.
Come on, Jocko. You got to be original.
Jocko,
Seals,
come
though.
on.
The problem is seals.
Jocko doesn't leave California. Actually, he does. He comes.
Did you see that?
He comes to Paducah.
Did you see that there? Did you see his? He had a pretty interesting podcast where he was talking about all the SEALs or people in that community that are going around saying that Jocko never did anything.
I have seen that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the more plates. My goal is for more plates, more dates to do a natty or not on me. I thought that was cool.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's like the gun community. We're so small and we're being attacked from all sides. So including
let's eat our own.
Including the Navy SEALs. Let's eat our own. I mean, the reality is if he was lying about that shit, there's better ways to handle it than going around.
So I haven't seen anything alluding to him lying, right? I haven't seen any of that. I know dudes.
Well, I know that he is not lying, but there have been SEALs that have been going around, to include some dev group guys that are like, he never deployed, he never did any of that stuff he says he's doing, and he's had to rebuttal it. And I think the dev group guy was like, yeah, I didn't know what I was talking about. But
because we know,
I don't know why.
we know dudes that were in his platoon.
Yeah. No,
we know guys
I believe,
that were in Ramadi with him.
I believe that Jocko, I believe that, like, we passed in the night. Like his SEAL team and when I went over there, like, we passed in the night. It's ridiculous.
I think it's people without an audience.
Yeah,
looking for an audience, and I don't know who the person is or anything.
It's just
how many dudes? Goggins, right? You know who David Goggins is,
Goggins.
Right? Black dude, used to live in Nashville here. 1,000-mile runs, right? 1,000-mile fucking runs, like many of them, like crazy shit. But how many dudes are come out and be like, he wasn't a good SEAL, or he wasn't this, or he wasn't that? I don't see any of your videos where you're doing. You know, he set a world record like 3 times for push-ups and pull-ups. Like when I click on the dude telling me, hey, this guy didn't do any shit. When I share one of his videos, guys are like, oh, he wasn't shit. When I click on his shit, there's not evidence that you're shit. Like,
yeah.
Everybody wants to attack everybody. And the crazy shit is, and I don't know if I'm just sensitive to it because I've been seeing it more and more and speaking about it. So I'm reticulative activating system or whatever. You know, you see a blue car or you buy a blue car, all of a sudden you see all
these blue cars.
So our community, right? Guys that would consider we would consider ourselves like in the tactical industry or the gear industry or military dudes. They all want to fucking destroy themselves. Like they're not worried about locking arms and fighting tyranny or building a better community or adding
they're
value.
all at each other's.
They want to fucking just nitpick, right? How did the Germans know where all the fucking Jews had all their shit hidden? Because other fucking Jews told them.
Yeah, and they were good record keepers.
Yeah, they were absolutely good record keepers. But how did they get the fucking records, right?
Yeah.
So you see that all the time, man. And I always go back to this fucking the Glock video, right? The Glock High Point fucking video.
High Point.
They comment High Point, the Champagne of firearms. They comment so much on this every day. There are dozens of new comments, and it's the first time. And anytime you click on their shit, they don't have any, there's no videos, there's nothing, right?
They're holding on to their dogma.
And I'm like, how did you find us? You found us. We've literally been doing these videos for 14 years now.
Has it really been that long?
Well, I started the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I bet.
It's been about 14, however long YouTube's been around. So we have we're closing up on 4,000 videos right now. And when I click on when a dude comments and I click on his profile, it shows me every comment he's ever made on the page. So it'll show me 200 or 2,000 or 0. And every one of the shit talkers, first comment every time. And you found us after all this time because somebody shared our shit that was mad about it, right? They weren't sharing it because they're like, oh, these guys are funny, or holy shit, they trolled them so good. Nobody fucking, they just can't fucking piece that together. And that's the mode that I believe most fucking citizens in the United States.
I have only seen one. I've only seen one set of comments, and it was because it was on Facebook, and I don't know why I saw it, but it was 2 comments that were, I don't even know what it was under, but it was like, did you see this bullshit about Glocks? And the guy's like, yeah, he was really hitting the Glock, and then the first guy was like, yeah, but did you see which gun? Did you see which gun he was carrying at the end? And they're like, yeah, and that was the end of it. So, yeah. I mean, Glock owners are the FUDs of the next century. They're just
that's what that's what they all call you, is the FUD. I'm like,
yeah, well,
you should find out who. I promise you, stick around.
Yeah, Glock
we'll
owners
say some
are the
more
FUDs
shit you don't like, but you
of
might
the
find
FUDs
something
of the
you
century.
Do. So a lot of stuff has happened this week.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
So we're over 12 balloons and UFOs.
Yeah. All balloons, no UFOs.
Shot down over 12. Do you know that they shot one down yesterday?
Yeah, it's
over Chicago. But we're worried about debris.
I feel like it's okay. So what most people don't know, and most people aren't paying attention to, that's why you keep seeing all these, using World War II technology to attack us. What most people don't know is there's been a 10-year-long program for high-altitude invisible balloons by the United States.
Against its own citizens.
Well, technically, no. They are surveillance balloons, and they have already
happened to be deployed over major cities in the United States.
They have already tested these balloons. They've already used them. It's actually crazy. There was a test where they were flying over Chicago, I think. And
well, they definitely were yesterday.
Yeah, they were flying over Chicago, the surveillance balloons, and the surveillance balloon witnessed a murder, and using its camera system, it was able to follow the guy who fired the gun down back alleys, through streets, into his car. Like, they knew where the dude lived. Now, because this was classified information, that dude has never been arrested. But
every time, it's like Stingray, right? Yeah. They're running a super duper Stingray program. They have this thing that we've had for 20 years called Stingray. And they could basically take over your cell phone, know everything that happens. It's just like the gunshot sensor. They could send snipers over in Iraq and shit. They're using that, but it's built into the satellite that's under these balloons.
So we have had these tactical spy balloons for a minute now. Okay, we tested them in the United States. Where do you think those balloons ended up?
Where?
Those balloons are probably flying over China, Russia, because they're undetectable. They use a technology that mirrors the sky. So even if you were to hear the balloon and you looked up, what you would see is the stars. You would not see the balloon itself. So they use technology that mirrors the sky. They're probably flying over China. China does not have, I know that the Department of Defense wants you to believe that China and Russia are near peer. They're not near peer. They're near peer to 1950s United States. They're not near peer now. They don't have the technology that we have. So if you're going to protest these surveillance balloons that you know that are up there, the best way to do it is to get you the technology you have and send all those fucking stupid balloons over here to be like, what are you going to do? Now, the first one was the actual test. The first one was the actual test because that was a high altitude balloon. That balloon was not in any FAA airspace.
The first one was also 200 feet around or whatever, whereas all these other ones have been much smaller.
That first one was a test to see what we would do. Now, it's not the first time a balloon has flown over the United States with, equipment on it. People release weather balloons and atmospheric balloons all the time. Countries do it all the time. So this is not the first time. So it's actually kind of weird that we shot it down after the Chinese were like, hey, it's just a weather balloon. It's weird that we shot it down. I am sure that the NSA was like, it's collecting everybody's TikToks. We better shoot it down. Or some weird shit. Like, we figured out what it was actually doing. Now, these other balloons, what you're seeing with these other balloons is because they're a different material, they're a different size, and they're different shapes. They're not aliens. 100% that is just a distraction, because they're not aliens, because we wouldn't send one F-22 Raptor to go shoot down an extraterrestrial vehicle. It would be every aircraft we have. But anyways, they're not aliens. These other balloons, what they're doing is they're testing, I believe this is what the Chinese are doing. They're testing the parameters of our radar systems. So
Mike Glover had an interesting video this morning, and he said they're setting the battlefield, right? Which is what we do, right? We go in and manipulate things, make people accustomed to seeing certain things, for instance, cause turmoil, cause commotion, get us to infight, and pay attention to other things. And he believes that is what a lot of this stuff that's going on.
I think what they're doing is they're testing the parameters of our ability to locate certain objects, because
so they did fly over a bunch of like nuclear sensitive facilities and launch areas.
Here's the problem with that. When you're flying 40,000 feet in the air and you're following a current,
I thought it dipped way down, the first one at least, because there were people posting video of it.
But that's because it was so big. It never went below FAA requirements. Otherwise, they would have shot it. As soon as it would have went into air traffic, they would have shot it down earlier, because you can't have a 747 coming in with a balloon strapped to the front of it.
I wonder if some of these lockdowns we've had on grounding aircraft had anything to do with this shit, from a couple weeks ago. There was another FAA lockdown recently.
Yeah. What's interesting is most of them are happening in Miami, which I don't know why.
The very first ones happened.
Yeah, I don't know why Miami is the epicenter to lockdowns. But so, anyways, I think what they're doing is they're testing the parameters of our radar systems, because what most people don't know is a lot of our radar systems are active systems, and so like the example would be the Russians have this maneuver where they fly straight up in the air and go into a vertical stall. And because they're not moving, our aircraft radar doesn't recognize that the aircraft is there in the sky. And so then they can drop down and maneuver on our air. That's, in theory, that's how it works. But I'm sure that the Chinese were just trying to figure out how our systems worked, because because they've already said that they have tuned the system in order to be able to see these objects, and that's why we have the capability to shoot them down, is because now we see them. They have actually tuned them so well that we have gone up, they have scrambled aircraft for targets that don't exist. So
what percentage would you give it that this is U.S. doing this as a distract? I mean, look at all the shit that's, the Epstein list just came out.
Yeah.
Unredacted day before yesterday. The client list came out.
That's the interesting thing about that.
And when I said that last night, people said, yeah, it came out a couple of years ago, and they just fucking blocked it. It's actually been out there.
It's been out. The client list doesn't mean anything.
Well, the client list was out.
Yeah.
The people on the plane were out. Victims' names are out. There's a bunch of shit it's out there now.
The client list doesn't mean anything if they are not going to prosecute. So if the DOJ is not going to prosecute anybody on that client list, then what are you going to do? Are you going to not buy Apple phones? You're not going to watch Hollywood-made movies, since most of those people were there. You're going to stop watching Chris Rock comedy specials. You're not going to do it. you're going to keep living your life as you live it, because the real problem is they are like banks in America. The truth of the matter is that client list is so big, it's too big to prosecute. So they're not going to prosecute anybody on that list. No one. Like even the people we know about, like that we know through court documents that were actually abusing young girls will never be touched because how big that list is. It's not. You think they're going to go after Bill Clinton?
It's pretty wild that
Hillary Clinton?
Pretty wild that they will prosecute and put somebody in jail for doing that. But you don't know who she was selling the kids to.
Correct.
That's just absolutely
the wild part is the fact that whatever was going on, however it was being used, was so deep that she is not screaming to the rafters. Like example would be Heidi Fleiss, like the Madam of Hollywood, Heidi Fleiss. She had no problem. She had no problem getting on the TV and telling everybody who her clients were and what they were into, because the stakes weren't high enough, right? It was just Heidi Fleiss, Madam of the Stars.
Well,
where this is completely different.
Yeah, they weren't kidnapping people. She was just providing vagina. She wasn't.
Well, I mean, you could say at that time, even with Heidi Fleiss, that was trafficking, right? She was definitely trafficking girls in order to provide sexual favors to big wigs in Hollywood. Again, the moral standard, the moral compass, Hollywood.
Were they doing it against their will? So they've co-opted that word.
Yeah,
right?
but that's the hard part to prove, right?
That's the new virtue signal right now, is to claim that you were trafficked.
I would think that the only place that you could go, like, I would think that, well, I mean, I don't know. I'm not deep into that world, but I would say the Bunny Ranch, because like those girls volunteer to go there. But outside of that, who knows? Anyways. But yeah, they're not ever going to prosecute any of those people, so it doesn't matter. It's just like this fucking, it's crazy.
So we've had 3 train derailments in the United States, big ones. One in particular you know about because you can see it from hundreds of miles away, the Mushroom Cloud in Ohio. Do you know that they made a Netflix movie about almost identical about that? Several of the actors from the movie live in the town where this just happened. In Palestine, but Netflix made a movie about a train derailing and a release of all this material and shit.
You know, we've been using trains for a long time.
Yes.
And there has been a lot.
There's 1,700 last year.
But I'm just saying, throughout history, there's been a lot of derailments. There was actually a town up close to Canada that completely burned to the ground because of a train derailment.
There's a town right up the road.
Waverly,
where the propane derailed,
and
it blew all the town apart.
Yeah, 25 firefighters were killed. I believe it was 25.
You know what they got it for that? They have a little caboose.
Yeah, we got a little caboose with a candle on it. But they also get I don't know if I'm supposed to say this. Free railroad ties anytime they do railroad ties change. If the city asks for railroad ties, the CSX is like,
the ones
gotcha, we got you covered. We got you covered. All the railroad ties you need. I mean, it's train management is not as easy as it seems, and there's derailments all the time. The interesting part is that people should be paying attention to is we've had some pretty catastrophic ones happen. One in Louisiana, one in Ohio. I don't know where the other one was recently.
South Carolina, I believe.
And it's never
this week.
You don't ever hear CSX train derail. 25,000 gallons of milk just went into the soil. It's always the worst fucking chemical on the planet that they are dumping into it.
Here's what I heard, and I have not verified this, but what I've seen said several times is they were running the wrong placards on these cars, on these tanks, because they're not supposed to carry this material on that line.
Okay.
There is another line that is for hazardous and hazmat type materials, and that line costs more to use than this line. So that derailment where
sounds
this
about
happened
right.
should not have happened. That material should not have even been on the line. Now, I've not verified that. It derailed. The procedure was to cool the tanks down and then evacuate them. Somebody made you're supposed to cool them down to 8 Fahrenheit, right? 8 is the number. At 8, I guess when it's out of its containment, 8 is the where it becomes a problem. So it is one of the main ingredients for making PVC. There were some other things. There was 9 chemicals being carried on this train. Somebody made the decision to blow it. I had heard they used explosives from local area law enforcement and blew this up. In doing so, I don't know if it ignited or if they ignited it simultaneously. That was supposed to burn everything up. Now, the next day, so I didn't even know. I follow a guy who does all my suspension for the Razors, builds all the custom shocks. And I saw a live video he was posting of being evacuated by the National Guard. So I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Train derailment. It wasn't even on the news yet when I was watching this happen the other day. So then you start hearing it, you're seeing it all over the place. And now you've got Tucker Carlson. I mean, everybody's fucking talking about this thing. So the next day, when the sun comes up, people are looking around. They've all been evacuated from the area, but towns next to them who have not, or wherever the non-evacuation zone was, people who are out at the waterways and stuff fishing, all the fish are dead. The birds are dropping out of the fucking air. People's chickens. There's hundreds of these videos where not even in the town, I mean hundreds of miles away, people come out to feed their animals and their animals are dead.
Well, I mean,
dude lets his 2-year-old dog out. Dog doesn't come back. Goes to find it. Dog's dead.
It's the ignorance of whoever's running. I mean, again.
Well, they have told everybody.
Whoever's running the show at Ground Zero.
Which seems to be no one.
Whoever's running the show at Ground Zero, it's the ignorance of whoever's running the show, because
so
there's nothing you can burn that doesn't travel in the trade winds. So even if you evacuate Ground Zero, that it's going to go 100 miles.
Yeah, all the cattle in the area are dead. All the horses are dead.
It's going to go 100 miles.
All the animals are dead. It's in the water, and that water moves down through West Tennessee and it evacuates all the way to the ocean, all the way to the coast. They have told people that the quarantine area is the evacuation area. They've let people come back in. Now, there's a bunch of chemicals that settle that are created by the burn off of this that are clear. You don't know they're there, so
right.
you can't just wipe some soot off. And then the thought is, the animals are dying because the stuff is sitting right. It is either sitting low or has settled in the soil and the water, and the animals are consuming that, whereas the humans are taller, so they're not breathing it in as much of a rate, but it's there, right? So
not eating the same things either.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, and you have shit that's literally dying hours after this has happened. So what's the rate where you start seeing humans die, right?
Well, one of the byproducts is phosphagen, which is a chemical weapon that was used in World War I.
In trench warfare.
Yeah, so a chemical weapon used in World War I, not immediately lethal. So, you think about using it in warfare. I want to get John out of this building over here, and I throw some phosphagen in there. John has an opportunity to get the fuck out of that building. He's gonna get burnt. He's gonna get scathed.
Well,
his lungs are gonna get fucked up. But if the more dispersed it is, the more likely that you could walk around and be like, okay, it's not as bad as I thought, but it's gonna kill you.
It's cumulative. Yeah,
it's cumulative.
And they said that phosphagen, one way you can tell it's there, it smells like cut grass or earthy. It smells like cut grass, right? So if you're smelling that smell, that is one of the signs of phosphagen. It basically burns your lungs on the inside. And then the treatment for it is just massive amounts of oxygen. Just keep pouring oxygen and try to flush the system out.
Which, I mean, if there, it's common. If you ever think that the government really gives a shit, they don't. It's actually more common than not for them to be like, oh my God, this is the most hazardous place in the world. You have to leave. And then, we threw some cat litter down. It's not as bad as we thought. Go ahead and move back there.
So they're using the hashtag U.S. Chernobyl, Ohio Chernobyl, stuff like that, and they're actually killing those hashtags. The big media is killing those. You're not hearing any mainstream media, like.
Well, because
as of right now, as of yesterday, the White House hadn't even spoke on this.
Because they are protecting somebody.
Correct.
They're protecting. The reality is, they're protecting Pete Buttigieg. This is Pete's. This is Pete's Chernobyl, because that is Pete's job, and I'll bet he wasn't even in the office when this shit happened. So they're protecting Pete is what they're doing. That's why it's not making. That's not why it's not making the 10 o'clock news, and it's not making the White House press. If they could dump this, if I believe if the left, the Democrats, could dump this in Biden's lap, they would. But it's Pete Buttigieg, and Pete is their hero for the next election. They want to run Pete for president. Can't run Pete if he's a fucking idiot and doesn't know anything about the shit job or the job that he has. I mean, whoever authorized them to burn it, whoever was the one that said,
that's the big question there.
Whoever
who
said, "Hey, go ahead, go ahead and burn it," well, should be burned at the stake, because that's not how you.
Well, here's another one, right? Okay, so we know the uproar. You can see the mushroom cloud, right? You know things are dying right now. They're going to ignite more of these.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's still more cars that they are intending to burn as they did these ones in the near future here, like as in today or
yes.
in the next couple of days. They're going to ignite more of these. I don't know if it's the exact same material,
which means that it doesn't matter if it's the same
material. Do you know they have that line?
You can recover. Here's the thing. It does not matter what the material is. Doesn't matter what it is. Anything that goes on a rail car, they can recover.
Do you know that the line is open? They're running actively back through. We have a friend who works for the railway, and he said it's millions of dollars every minute that a line is down. So they don't actually I always had this impression that when a train derails, they come out with big equipment and put it back on the rails and bring it home. They cut it up for scrap. It's cheaper to salvage it and destroy it and push it out of the way, and then start breaking it down to get the line back open.
Well, that's it. It's a financial. Somebody's making it, and if it's just a CSX employee, and this may not even be CSX.
It's not CSX.
Sorry, CSX. I don't mean to throw you into the bus,
but
you did blow up my town.
It's another one I hadn't heard of. It's not CSX. It's not Union Pacific.
But if it's a financial, because that's the issue.
Blackstone owns this company.
Well, then it is
BlackRock.
Then it was a financial issue, and they're just like, instead of recovering it, burn it, because you can recover all that stuff,
or burn it and hide the evidence.
I mean, evidence of
what?
Of what?
Exactly.
Yeah, evidence of what?
So 30 minutes prior to the derailment, there are some security cameras that have this train going across, and there are sparks and or flames coming out of the wheel system. So one of the axles had something
wrong with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that could be it.
I'll bet when you really get to the bottom of all this, if they even do, you're going to find that undermanned, undermaintained, just like the airplanes right now. You've got airplanes doing all kinds of crazy shit because you've pushed so many workers out. You've incentivized people not going to work. You're running your workforce. Your good performers are still performing, and they're just run ragged. So who knows what direction that's going to go. Now, also, Mike Glover was saying that there's been a lot of intentional attacks on trying to derail trains in the United States in the last few years. They actually arrested somebody and let them out. Like some I don't remember who it was, tried to derail. I think it had something to do with Antifa. Tried to derail a train, and they just smack on the wrist and be free. There were several websites around and videos on how to derail trains. Now, I remember having that conversation with somebody. They applied explosives over at SOTG, right?
100 years ago.
And I remember hearing that to get a train, you wanted to remove 2 sections of track.
Yeah.
Like you could cut track out, and that train will fucking still oftentimes not derail.
Yes, there's a way where you don't have to do so much track, and it's about how a train functions.
Yes.
Which I'm not going to say here because you rascals
But
all you Glock guys will be out there with hacksaws on the train tracks.
Mike Glover was saying that it has to do with electricity, polarity.
Well, yeah,
and you can literally just switch some shit in the box and cause the train to derail.
Well, it's the polarity part is you can't just remove a section of track. So, man, I'm not even talking about it.
Can you touch?
I'm not even talking about it.
Can you touch?
Yes,
because they're not electric, right?
They're not electric. There's
they
a
have
well,
nothing
there's
to do.
there is a
Do you remember as
there
a
is
kid,
a current that runs through those train tracks.
Do you remember as a kid putting pennies on the train track and it would flatten them?
Yeah, you can still do that.
Yeah,
you can still do that. It won't. The train's not going to bunny hop off your pennies But I think, you know what? I say you can still do that.
So I said that, and
but
I had people on live feed last night saying that you can just put rock over the train and it'll derail.
No,
I don't think it will.
It won't. It won't derail. A rock's not. You're not even understanding. Most people can't comprehend
the weight
the
of
sheer
these.
tonnage of what is going through there. The sheer tonnage. You have to actually do some. There's some things that you can do that you have to do to get that thing to derail. Now, there's also forces of nature. You know, if a train is going too fast, if a train is going too fast into a curve, or there are things that just naturally occur that will put a train on its ass. Usually human error. Sorry, conductors.
In 2022, you had 1,700 plus derailments of trains in the United States. So it's common. You just don't hear about it because it didn't destroy all these people.
The question would be the hard part about when you say derailments is we don't know the level, right? So you see this thing going on in Ohio and they say derailment. That's the destruction of a complete train.
You never would have heard. You never would have heard the derailment had it not been for them lighting this shit on fire. You wouldn't. It wouldn't be on anybody's radar.
I mean, there'd probably be a little bit of news, but not like it is. Like example is just this month we had a derailment in Waverly.
Really?
Yeah, had a I think it was a single car pop the tracks, and they just do what they do and popped it back on the tracks and
a few years ago. And our friend was actually in charge of this scene a few years ago.
I think he's
not anymore, unless he's back on that.
Well, he's not. Yeah, he's not the general anymore.
Right up the road here, we had a dam break. We have a sand plant, and they hold a bunch of water. And the dam broke and washed a train off of the tracks, and it drowned a couple of conductors. It was a huge fucking disaster. You can still see the scars from it, where this train plowed in and wiped out some fields and some other stuff, like forests and stuff. But it's very close. It happened here in Camden, but it wasn't on the radar. Like we heard about it local, but it wasn't reported.
Have you seen I know this is going off the tracks here a little bit, but have you seen the video of the engine that's just driving across the freeway?
I did.
That goes off, that ices off and just drives across the freeway.
Yep.
Those conductors were shitting. We're shitting. Anyways.
Yeah, there's no brakes.
Yeah.
Or steering.
There's nothing. You're just at the mercy of, I mean, I don't even know what an engine weighs. It's got to be crazy tons.
What would your better bet be, to stay on board?
Just stay on board.
Try to jump off.
I think just stay on board. Well, I feel like it was going slow enough that maybe you could have just walked down the ladder to the edge and kind of tucked and rolled.
But then you'd end up on the same.
But
ice.
I don't know. When I say I think it was going slow enough, it could have been going 40 miles an hour.
Do you know anything about engines?
No, I don't know. I don't
like diesel, electric.
Diesel, electric. Yeah, that's all I know. I don't know anything about how it operates or anything.
Yeah, I don't know much about.
They're just badass. I mean, the reality is, the amount of weight that they're pulling around this country every day is just crazy. And
we still have hobos. Like, people still ride the trains.
Yeah,
it's
not as hobo-y though.
The government would want you to believe that everything's super secure and it can't possibly happen, but it still happens.
Yeah, it's actually, there's people who do it as a
whole thing. Yeah, a whole YouTube or a whole lifestyle.
Yeah, they do YouTube, but like a whole lifestyle where they're like, they're just regular Joe businessmen, 9 to 5, and then they're like, this summer I'm going to ride the train all over the United States, and they hobo it up.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, pretty wild. I mean, a good way to travel. I just watched.
Is it a good way to travel? I mean, you're in boxcars and shit. It's fucking loud,
I mean,
non-insulated.
I think the interesting thing about riding a train, like if you could do it, is you get to see parts of the country that nobody sees anymore. Like,
Right, people have no idea where the train lines
yeah,
really
where the train line, like, you know, when I used to be leaving 29 Palms and go to Vegas, I would take the old Route 66, which would go through the desert, just because it was surreal. But you'd see those long trains coming out of LA, going through the desert, and just like, man, I bet it would be pretty cool to see what those, because they're traveling in places that nobody travels anymore. Kind of cool to see what those trains see, what those conductors get to see, and shit like that. They drive through they locomote through all the old towns that don't exist anymore and all that shit. It'd be pretty interesting.
I wonder if they can just stop where they want. Like, I know our trains literally stop and the guys get off and go across and eat at the restaurants.
I don't think they can stop wherever they want. You have to have double track. That's why they stop
so
here and
keep it going.
That's why they stop here in Jayville, is because they have that double track there. But still kind of cool. I mean,
so what do you think's next?
What's next?
What's the next surprise? So have you seen all the
who had balloons?
Have you seen all the Aurora Borealis shit? There's supposed to be something crazy going on in Colorado right now. This morning, looks like a giant laser beam that's miles around has fucking spotlighted the ground.
Here's the problem. The problem is we're at a state right now of technology that, unless
this is supposed to be year of Operation Bluebeam.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Unless you physically go outside and see it,
is it bullshit? Yeah.
You don't know if it's real or not. Did you see the giant vagina cloud over Syria?
I didn't see the vagina, but I just saw this morning. I saw what looks like a squid with tentacles flying around someplace over the United States.
That's the problem. The problem is we're at a point in technology where, like, literally this podcast could be completely fake. Completely fake. Brandel could probably be in it. He could be. You don't know this. Could be in his basement, in his underwear, eating nachos, creating this whole episode through his computer. He has enough.
He's in his underwear, but he doesn't have any nachos.
He has enough. He has enough voice. You know, he has enough of us that he could generate.
That's what they said. They said they could make for the rest of our lives. They could make Arnold Schwarzenegger videos right now.
Well, I just saw a thing, a Joe Rogan podcast. Joe Rogan podcast where he's interviewing Peter Jordan.
Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson. Yep, Jordan Peterson. He's interviewing him, and they're talking about all this crazy stuff, you know, the typical stuff they talk about. And then Joe asks him about AI, and he kind of goes on this whole thing about, you know, the same kind of line that Elon's going on about how it's going to destroy us. And then he talks about how you don't even know if what you're watching is real anymore. And then they're like, because this whole podcast was fake. Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson never had this conversation. We gen the whole thing up, and it looked like a legit podcast. So
it was not.
It was not. It was all Chat GPT or whatever.
I heard about this. I heard Rogan did something like this 6 months or so ago.
Yeah, it's probably old because the technology's there. So the technology's there to where, like,
so Chat GPT is very left leaning. Have you seen all that?
Yeah, it's woke.
Yeah,
woke. Here's the thing about Chat GPT. Okay, a lot of people keep saying
it's completely broken right now.
Well, a lot of people keep saying artificial intelligence. A lot of people keep saying AI, and they point at things like Chat GPT or that whatever that program is they use to do artwork and shit like that. It's not artificial intelligence. All it is a program. It's running a program. It's searching through the parameters of what's already out there, and it's creating what it's been programmed to create. It's not AI.
And they said it only
because AI would not be left or right.
And I thought it only had access to up to like 2017 or something, and it also doesn't have access to search the internet. They said
probably when you're dabbling in the snake arts like that, you don't want to give it too much information. It's like the Facebook bots. Facebook created a couple of robots, little cubes that were supposed to be
they lost control over them.
AI, and then they started speaking a different language, so they had to destroy them.
And then Google had one that became racist. Like they said, because the United States is the only country where people are not racist, right? Where we actually might have some people that are not racist. Every other country hates fucking everybody else.
Yeah, this is the contrary to what people will tell you. We are the most integrated society in the world. If you're Bernie Sanders and you're like, the Norwegians do it best, they're also all white. So the United States is the melting pot in the world. There's no country in the world that is as integrated as we are. And because of that, we have problems, but not near the problems that the rest of the world has. You don't have Hutus in the United States going after Zulus with machetes.
Look how France is looking right now.
Yeah, it's just what you want is, interestingly enough, we were able to bring other nationalities here and not make them, but create an atmosphere where they wanted to be America, which was, when you think about it, America is nothing. It's not real. It's not like being a Comanche. It's not like being a Hutu. It's not real. It's not something that is real. America was made up. We made it up. And we brought all these nationalities, these different countries, different people, races together, and created an atmosphere where people wanted to be part of America. And so we don't have the problems, like, for example, French. When you're in France, they want you to be French. France is not a country more as it is like a club. And so it's hard to join that club. Where America, it's not hard to be an American. Like, the reality is all you have to do is show up, work a little bit, and you can be an American. Now the powers that be and the left wants to destroy all that by creating false narratives that is the worst place in the world, but it's not. You can go to countries in Africa where 10,000 people were hacked to death with machetes for mere religious differences. That doesn't happen here in the United States. It's never happened here in the United States. Outside of the Indian genocide.
Have you watched any of the congressional shit going on with Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene?
No, I haven't watched any of that stuff. Because it's all bullshit. They're not
grilling the Twitter executives.
Now, it's interesting.
And especially this congressman from Louisiana, bald dude.
It's interesting.
Holy shit.
But nothing is going to come of it.
Correct.
They're not going to do anything to
Why
Twitter.
Why is that?
Because those are giant corporations. They're giant multi-million-dollar corporations that put millions and millions of dollars into campaign financing for those people who want to be elected. And that's why nothing changes. It doesn't matter if the reality is when you get up there, it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. The point is status quo. Now, the Democrats have lost a little bit of face because they went way to the left. They're not keeping that status quo. And what all the Republicans are doing right now by grilling, the fucking executives from
Twitter, Vijay Gadde and the FBI is trying
to get things back center. It's trying to be like, hey, you went way crazy to the left. Let's get back to the center. Let's just stay in the center. Because as long as we are in the center, so if you think of you think about the 50s, early 60s, 80s, everything was central and when it's all centric, everybody can get paid, and nobody has to, like, let's be clear. Nancy Pelosi has been playing the stock game since she's been in there. It's only a big deal right now because they went so crazy to the left. They're trying to pull them back in and say, hey, you can do all the fucking dirty stock deals you want, but let's, reel in the squad. Let's get this fucking shit under control and get back to the center.
Do you know what was that chick's name that was sucking Bill Clinton's dick under his desk? Anyways.
Yes.
Do you know whose dick Nancy Pelosi was sucking?
I don't know.
JFK.
Is it possible?
She was JFK's.
Because Nancy Pelosi,
how old is Nancy Pelosi?
79, I think.
And he died in 69?
Yeah, but, the CIA killed him, so.
The CIA absolutely killed him. I mean, fucking, did you see this dude, Pulitzer Prize winner, has won several Pulitzer Prizes, has come out and said that absolutely, no question, the United States blew up the gas pipeline.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's.
Right? And ball tops, whatever.
I don't think, I think there's nuance.
So you had this lady saying, if you invade Ukraine, we're gonna take down the what's the pipeline called?
Yeah, the Burisma.
Burisma. Is it Burisma?
I believe it is Burisma pipeline.
And then when Biden said it, and some reporter said, "Well, how you do that?" He goes, "Trust me, we'll do it. It'll happen." So the way they did it is during this exercise, SEALs, the Navy divers, planted explosives. And then time to detonate, plane flew over, dropped a buoy with a beacon, and it set those off. And everybody even said the United States, like they said, everybody over there said the United States
I don't
did
think
it.
the United States did it.
And some messaging has come out. So they've got emails or text messaging, and that's when that lady who became
former prime minister,
yeah, she's like, we did it, it's handled.
She was only prime minister for like 2 seconds because all of her texts went in the clear. So, I think the United States orchestrated, said, like, okay, in the back rooms where the decisions are made, there are a lot of Americans, and those Americans make those decisions. But we are a farm out type of. This is the door.
Who is it? Come here. What's up?
Those are hot as fuck.
Thanks.
Free ribs. That we farm out everything.
Can I get a rib? Fuck it, just put it in my hand.
Yeah. Pour in my hand for a nickel.
Can you break 100? Let me see those ribs. Oh man, I thought this was gonna be a plate.
It's just one rib. One rib.
Holy shit, they're hot.
That's what he said. One rib.
Would you like to try one?
I'm not eating rib on national television.
God, I can't not eat them. They're
I know
here.
they're like.
Are you still a Muslim?
They smell good.
Do you eat pork? I thought you were bringing pizza. You told me pizza. I said we'll eat pizza together.
Wait, you don't eat pork?
Not really.
Why not? What's wrong with you? You communist?
I don't like it.
You communist?
No, I don't like it.
You
God, you got to put these someplace.
yeah, take those.
Put these on the other side of the building here.
They do smell
They
wonderful.
smell fucking so good. Holy shit.
I think the United States green-lighted the operation, and then Poland,
They're too hot. Don't put them in your pocket like that.
Polish special forces blew the damn thing
Polish
up.
did.
Because Poland released a thing, like they were 20 minutes early to the party as far as when the pipeline blew up, and they're like, yeah, the Russians blew up their own pipeline, and then everybody was like, what?
Oh, you know where else that happened once?
Where else?
Yeah,
It happens all the time.
over when UK reported that the Twin Towers had fallen before
Yes.
they actually fell.
Before they actually fell. I don't know if that was anyways. Yeah, I think that that we brokered the deal, and then because here's the thing, Poland, you have all these countries that are vying to be
Friends
the strategic partner of the United States, and Poland is one of them. That's why all the Leopard 2 tanks that Ukrainians have been getting are coming out of Poland. That's why all the training that is going on for those tank crews is happening in Poland. I mean, if you think about it, if you think about what's going on over there right now, if it was America, if it was America that was wearing the Russian shoes right now, we'd bomb Poland.
Yeah.
We would have already fucked Poland up and said it's their fault for training the tank crews and providing all the material support for the Ukrainians. The Russians, I mean, the reality is you can be mad at Putin, and he fucked up by going into Ukraine. I think he played right into.
I don't think we're the good guys here.
I think he played right into the global strategy of how to get rid of Russia. I think he played right into it. I'm sorry that Ukraine has to go, but you know what? That's just the way the ball bounces. Get used to it. Afghanistan had to have us there for 10 years or 20 years. Fucking Iraq had us there.
We're still in Iraq.
It's just the way the ball bounces when it comes to global strategy on how to control the entire world. And I think Putin stepped right into. I think we did to Putin the exact same thing we did to Saddam Hussein.
Yeah.
That he thought he was going to get away with taking over that country, and now we're just like, we're going to fuck you up, bro.
I think he is taking over that country.
And we're gonna proxy war this out because it's just easier to let other people fight than to send your soldiers over there.
Who do you think the next president is?
The next president, I don't. Whoever the left wants.
You think that's what it's going to be?
First off,
they're going to cheat through the.
First
computers?
off, we don't have the voting power. Meaning, if every just numbers wise, if every Republican votes and every Democrat votes, we lose every time.
Legally we don't lose.
No. What I'm saying is legally, if you have a Democratic candidate, you have a Republican candidate, and you allow everybody to vote that can vote, there are more Democratic voters, so they're always going to win.
Is that because of all the people, open border, and
is it? The reality is when you think about like illegal immigration and them allowing illegal immigrants to vote in California and places like that.
Have you heard how many terrorists they caught last year?
A ton of them.
Like actual, not like fucking. We're gonna put you and me and Mike Glover on the terrorist watch. Like actual
terrorists. Yes. That's the easiest way to get into the United States through the southern. Well, it's actually not the easiest way. Canada's the easiest way, but it's just as easy to get through the southern border undetected. But if even with the pandering vote, the illegal immigration, if you don't even include that, just registered legal voters, there are more Democrats than there are Republicans. So we would lose every time. The only reason why we win elections. The only reason why Republicans win elections is Democrats don't vote. Democrats don't go to vote. And so we are able to edge it out. Cause it's like, I think we're 48. I think we're 48 to 51 somewhere in the electoral vote. So we would lose every time if everybody voted, but everybody doesn't vote. So
what do you think would happen if Donald Trump was president again this next time?
They would kill him.
You think so?
Oh yeah, the military-industrial complex. Not even just the military-industrial complex. If you think of all the three-letter agencies that were culpable to outright treason, meaning the Steele dossier, that was treason.
Yeah.
Every FBI agent that touched that dossier was culpable to treason.
They were just in before Congress.
Yeah, they're culpable to treason. Because they created a false narrative, which is 100% been proven to be false. So everything that those three-letter agencies were doing that entire time to undermine the President of the United States, that is called treason. So if you brought the president, if he somehow could come back, like I feel like if Donald Trump was serious and he started running for re-election and it looked like there was a possibility that he could win, they'd kill his ass on the campaign trail because they can't have him sitting in the White House because they would have to. Here's the ultimate thing. They would have to make a deal with him. They would have to be like, okay, you can send Comey to Gitmo. I mean, they would have to make a deal where certain individuals within those agencies would be ostracized. And they're not going to allow it. They're not. They just, there's too many communists in the FBI now. There's too many far left. They would kill his ass for sure.
This congressman from Louisiana, he was talking to Vijay Gadde, and he said, we're getting to the bottom of this. The handcuffs come next time. And the things he was saying, just like they give you some hope, right?
Yeah, that's all it is.
And the hopium, right?
Mm-hmm. That's all.
Almost as though it's a scripted play, right? It's you and I don't watch did you know the Super Bowl was this? When was the Super Bowl Sunday?
When everybody was talking about a football game this weekend, I was like,
yeah, you didn't hear shit about it.
Oh, but I was actually like,
no one gives.
Maybe it's the playoffs.
Yeah, I never heard a fucking shit about it. They said it on my live feed. I didn't have a fucking idea.
The thing I saw is
we don't watch that, but we'll watch the other.
The thing I saw is why was there a football game at Rihanna's baby shower?
So the kid that died, right? This kid, the kid that died playing football, that they've made a hero out of. Well, apparently I saw him on video today, or I wouldn't know. I mean, it could be some other kid for all I know, but it's him on video. And the reporter said, "Hey, this was an ex-NFL guy also. He said when we played, we were constantly tested for anything you could be tested for if there was any health conditions, right? Because we're insured, right?
Right.
That's really what it comes down to. You were a financial vehicle for these people. So he said, what did the doctors tell you? And he said, I don't want to comment on that.
They can't.
I can't. I don't want to speak on that.
They can't. Here's the issue. They have a serious issue. Football players in general have a serious issue because, well, I would say the NFL has a serious issue, and they manipulate the players enough through financial gains in order to keep their mouth shut.
Well, yes.
They can't say anything because the NFL forced them to get shots. And if tomorrow, like, the reality is these people are dying through complications of COVID shots. That's it. They're just dying from complications of COVID shots. That opens the NFL up for lawsuits.
There was a doctor.
You can't sue Pfizer, but you definitely can sue
somebody asked
the
a
NFL.
doctor about.
Are you getting ready to stop? P.
Okay, what were you saying?
Something about Brandel in his underwear in the basement.
No, but
eating nachos out
long after that.
Out of a Padre helmet.
So they were talking about what he wasn't saying was about the shot. So I saw a thing too this morning, a doctor talking about death rate in newborns and how elevated the death rate was, and the correlation between what the mothers had taken over the last couple of years. And he said that it's ridiculously elevated.
Yeah,
stillborn, not coming to term, and then the problems, the problems that you're starting to see arise in these very young children.
Yeah, the real numbers are actually coming out of the Department of Defense.
Yeah, 78% is what I heard.
We monitor our troops very well, and they're having some serious problems in the Department of Defense because of
78% elevated miscarriages.
Yeah,
78.
I mean, what are you going to do?
They're not going to do anything.
You should have refused to get the shot, been forced out of the Army, and just waited, because they're going to reinstate all those soldiers that were forced out. They're going to back pay them, and they're going to continuate their promotions, meaning the time that they were out. If they come back in, the time that they were out will still rate towards their promomies.
So if you look at, like, let's say law enforcement, right? Mm-hmm. Oath keepers, okay? Took the oath to uphold the Constitution against all foreign enemies and foreign and domestic. Who was most apt not to take that, right? Those people, right? The dudes that had been on the job,
right?
The old time dudes. This is how we do it. This is why we do it. We uphold the Constitution. Those were the dudes mostly that were pushed out. So who has Lori Lightfoot, for instance, Chicago, right? Beetlejuice pushed a ton of her officers out. The like real dudes, that had been on the job, and she's replaced them with yes men.
Yes,
she's replaced them with fucking just weak-minded, will do anything they're told. I was just doing my job kind of shit. those people aren't coming back to the job. They're not.
No, they're not gonna-
maybe they relocated someplace. I mean, it looks hopeful when you have 128 sheriffs come out and be like, we're not helping any federal laws. We're not assisting you. You're not coming in here to prosecute. You're not coming in here to do raids.
It's nice. It's nice that the sheriffs are doing that.
They're going to push them out.
It's cool that they're doing that. But the important thing, and this is the thing that most people don't understand, it's the long haul, not the short haul. The important thing is the laws on the book, or the law. I mean, it's not really on the books yet, but the laws are on the books, and those sheriffs are electable. So it really doesn't mean shit when a 4-year guy that can be pushed out of office says, I'm going to uphold the Constitution. For you as a citizen that is going to be there for the next, let's say you're going to live there for the next 60 years, it doesn't mean shit, because as soon as they push him out of office, the next guy is the yes man that is going to kick in your door and fucking shoot your dog because you have a pistol brace on your rifle, or, you know, a bayonet lug or some stupid shit like that. That next guy is going to do it. So, I mean, it's nice that the sheriffs are coming out and saying, fuck you. It is really great. But the reality is it doesn't mean shit unless you can get that law kicked off the books.
I think you should pay very close attention to that, right? Don't think that you're safe because your sheriff says that.
You're not safe.
Because the guy that lost, he's compiling a list of all of you guys.
Yeah.
Like the other side, the Civil War, there's not going to be this side of the river, that side of the river, like up the road here, like when they do the reenactments. The Civil War is going to be with your Prius driver and your fucking Hillary Clinton signs in the front yard versus the dude at the end of the street with the Trump sign, right? That's where that Civil War is going to be. So those people who we perceive as having lost for that 4 years, they're keeping dossiers. They're fucking compiling information of where those Trump signs were and who those gun owners were. They just passed some law. I don't remember what. I think it was California, right? They're
Probably.
incentivizing with the new law where people can sue the firearm manufacturers for somebody, you know, mass shooter kills somebody with a Remington or whatever.
Right.
Now everybody, and you don't even have to have been a victim or a family member of a victim. You can sue the firearms manufacturer. California is paying $10,000. So your neighbor sees you with a rifle and says you have a pistol brace rifle, or they call it ghost gun, right?
Yeah.
How the fuck with a dude who doesn't own guns? I wouldn't know what a fucking gun.
Yeah, all it is going to be.
I know guns somewhat, but I wouldn't know what a ghost gun was.
All
from
it
a
is going to be.
distance.
All it is going to be Karens
Yes.
calling in about people that
Just
have
like
guns,
just
and
like
then,
the red flag stuff.
and the police will show up. And
So when they show up and raid you, and they give them $10,000 for every crime they put on you, everything they prosecute you for, they get $10,000. So if you go to court and they put you in prison for 3 charges, they get $30,000. And this chick who hates you and hates guns, or hates you because of your dog, or hates you because your kid beat up the other, whatever it was, like it's fucking nuts, man. It's nuts.
It's all they can. It's really all they can do, because the foundation that California was standing on as far as gun laws has been pulled out from under them. And so what they have to do is what they are doing is create new, more draconian laws in order to try and stem the tide of what's about to happen. Because what most people don't know is California has some of the worst gun laws in the United States. I mean, well, people know this, right? We always point to California as the worst gun laws in the United States.
New Jersey, New York.
But California as a state is the biggest consumer of firearms in the United States. So, example, bullet buttons. The only reason why we even know about bullet buttons is because of the millions of AR-15s that were bought under the bullet button. Now, that's just AR-15s. They were importing 40,000 AR-15 lowers a month in California.
That seems low.
When bullet button came out. Okay, that's just AR-15s.
Didn't I hear
40,000 a month?
Didn't I hear the first year of COVID they sold 8 million
Probably, yeah.
in California? registered.
That was a byproduct. The issue there is that was a byproduct of the left's allowance, or the left allowing their own people to eat their own people. Meaning, the reason why we had record gun sales was not because Republicans were out buying guns. It was because Democrats were out buying guns, because they looked around and went, "Holy shit! What's going on in Seattle? What's going on at these Black Lives Matter rallies? They're eating our own. I need a fucking gun." And so the biggest buyer of guns in the last 5 years has not been rednecks. It's been fucking libs out there buying guns, because they know that the system that they created will collapse upon itself. And guess what? You know who the first people that are going to get eaten are? You, the left. Those first people are going to get eaten.
I'm hopeful
by other lefties.
Hopeful that some of those people that bought guns, right, who were scared to death of guns or whatever,
Yes.
or just dudes that they literally just don't fucking know, right? They're just they work at Apple or wherever the fuck they work, and they don't know there's another world out there, right? I am hopeful that some of those guys that bought guns out of fear went and got training and realized that all these white radicals are not so fucking radical, right? They're just normal fucking people that want to be left the fuck alone.
That's the biggest problem that that certain gun control agendas is having right now, is that a lot of left-leaning people have bought firearms
and are now voting for the other side.
Well, it's not necessarily voting for the other side, but they have bought firearms and they have gotten some training and they have shot those guns, and they're like, these things aren't what we thought they were, right? Because the majority of left people, they see an AR-15, they think the AR-15 is just running down the street shooting people.
Come jump in your shower and shoot you.
That the AR-15 is just out there killing people, which it's not. And so it's that a simulation. It's like the Borg. If I can get you to go out and shoot some guns and understand how those firearms work and understand, that they are not inherently evil. Only people can be evil. Then you will end up buying a fucking AR-15 and being like, you know what's fun? Going shooting cans with my AR-15. There's a ton of liberal groups out there that are now pro NRA. I don't want to say they're pro NRA, but they're pro Second Amendment, because they understand that when things go to hell in a handbasket, the government is not going to be there. They're not going to be there. I mean, example is you said Beetlejuice up there in Chicago. When Black Lives Matter was moving through her neighborhood, she had the police surround her house.
Yep.
She didn't give a shit about any other house on the street. Yep. She had her house protected.
Raised those bridges and left all those people to
she had her house protected. The government don't give, the people that are running the government don't give two shits about you. And the reality is, and I know most people that would go through the trouble of listening to this podcast already understand this, but the reality is the federal government was never meant to help you anyways. No. It wasn't. There's no reason for the president of the United States to give two shits of what's going on in Tennessee. That's why we have a governor and we have state representatives. They should be caring about what's going on in Tennessee, not what's going on in Washington.
That's what this congressman from Louisiana, man, I wish I could remember his name, but he was talking about the bump stock ban. And he said, you're about to make all these people felons. And not only are you going to make them felons, you're going to send law enforcement in the middle of the night to collect these things, because that's when the ATF does things, is in the middle of the night while people are sleeping. And you're going to risk burning their houses down, and you're going to come in unannounced. And these people all have guns, and they're going to shoot, and then they're going to shoot back, and you're going to kill these families, and it's not okay. It's just not. He said, you guys have created the crime,
right,
by all your laws, and you want to prosecute innocent people, but not criminals, right? You've created these problems. He said, when I was in high school, he was in some historic area, right? And he said, during high school, I did carpentry work. And we had to refit and update these houses, but in the periodic manner, right? They had to be built. And he said you could tell where these houses were built with hand saws and when things were built with electric saws. He said, one of the things I noticed on all of these houses, none of these houses had locks. They didn't have any locks on the door because there wasn't crime. Where did the crime come from? The more government got involved and
The more crime,
more crime there was, because you didn't let the average citizen handle their own problems. And now, like, it's just a good example. I mean, if you went out and started collecting up pedophiles, right? They'd spend more money to come after you. They'd set up a whole task force to go after you than they would the fucking people snatching the kids.
Yeah. Example is, where was it?
Government can't exist without continuing to grow.
Where did we just have the shooting? Ohio State?
No. So Massachusetts? Michigan
State?
When I was on live feed night before last night, dude, one of the fourth or fifth comments was like, I am under lockdown right now in an active shooter.
Yes. Well, that's another prime example. That individual,
you notice you haven't seen that individual.
That individual was arrested, and the liberal prosecutor did not want to use the gun enhancement on him and let him out. So you have to, it's one of those things where, like,
so I haven't really heard
you should be able to sue as a, like, for example, the college campus should be able to sue on behalf of the students, the prosecutor who let that guy out without giving him a gun enhancement.
So were people shot?
3 people, I believe 3 died.
I haven't even heard.
I believe 3 died, not counting, he shot himself, but I believe 3 have died, and there was quite a bit that were injured.
Is there a note, or do we have a reason, or was it a girlfriend?
I don't know.
Did you see the chick that took the customer service rep at Walmart hostage?
No, I didn't see that one.
Black chick, got a big old white girl, and fucking she wanted something that they didn't do, something didn't go her way. Fucking pulled a pistol out of her backpack, fucking held that bitch at gunpoint. I never saw the resolution. I don't know how that ended.
She probably got her cupcakes or whatever she was looking for.
I don't know what it was she was after, but she like fucking skinned it out. She kept saying, I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want to hurt anybody. I think it was law enforcement was there, like, hey, just put the gun down. But then I never saw the end of it. I never saw what happened. But it's happening more and more and more.
It's always, if you're frustrated and you're angry because your Ford truck doesn't start, or your GameCube that you bought at Walmart doesn't work, or if you're frustrated about that stuff and you're angry, the people at Walmart are the lowest common denominator. Why are you yelling at the person at that desk? That person is the lowest common denominator, can do shit for you, can't do anything for you. The reality is, when you're doing that, when you're attacking those people, when you're attacking your servers, or you're attacking the mechanic at Toyota because they didn't align your tires right, or when those are the lowest common denominators. Those people have more in common with you than the brand name you're trying to represent.
You want me to tell you why? I've said this actually hundreds of times. When we go to Walmart or Best Buy, when we walk in, if I have to go to the bathroom, I always stop there. If I don't have to go to the bathroom because it's in the other direction,
right.
I go to the customer service desk, because you will see most of the general population that we live amongst. You'll see those people that is a good sampling of customer service, and they're berating Sheila in there or whoever, right? Because you're a piece of shit from China, or you bought something and now you can't pay your bills, so you want to take it back. The person at the customer service desk can oftentimes give you what you want or keep you from getting what you want. So when things don't go their way, their immediate thing, these are the children who threw a tantrum.
Yes.
And mom didn't fucking whip their ass, right? We would go out on Sundays. My family would all get together at my grandmother's house. And my cousins, their family, I think, just had more money, because after church they would go to Toys R Us every Sunday, and they'd get a toy. When we would be out in public, and sometimes we would all go shopping, right? Mom and my 2 aunts and all the kids would go shopping. I'd run around and do some shit and hide inside the clothes like kids did, right? But I never got my ass whipped. I never did anything to get my ass whipped. But my cousins, one of them in particular, would throw a fit, like literally throw himself on the ground when he was told he could not buy a toy or get something. And it would always be a scene, like huge, right? But he never got his ass whipped. And that's these kids. Now, my cousin now is very successful in what he does, right? I never look at that and think that about him being a little fucking asshole when we were kids. But those are those people, right? They never got their ass whipped. They always got rewarded, and that's the appeasement, right? Now you walk into a burger place, or I always use Ruby Tuesdays, right? Amanda used to like to go there, and I'm like, there's no fucking way I'm going in that place, because there's always screaming kids. You're gonna slip on some food that the fucking little asshole kids, the parents have let them throw all over the place. But now we give them you'll walk into a fucking restaurant and it's not screaming kids much anymore, because there's 10 kids with fucking iPads or cell phones, right? So now they're quiet. And kids don't know how to interact and deal with people because they've now grown up on these things. And it's not that the parent is worried. Like when we pick the kids up for crying, we don't let them cry and be like, hey, get up, you're okay? We hurry up and get them up, not only out of overly concern for the child, but it's more because we can't, adults, parents can't deal with the screaming kid. So they want to end it rather than let the kid go through some turmoil and build up some resilience and some fucking mental toughness and physical toughness. We quiet it out so that we also don't have to hear it. And that's where these people come from. They've been rewarded all their lives. So now it's literally the modern day throwing themselves on the ground and kicking and screaming because they've been rewarded for the behavior. When they make a scene, customer service, human relations, management, especially at a restaurant, right? We call this dude Bob. Bob is the dude. There's always Bob. And you're at the office and you're all talking to the dudes, and it's Friday and you're going to go across the street to the pub and you're going to watch some soccer and eat some hot wings, right? And then you all get over there and there's that fucking dude that everybody looks like, who invited Bob? Nobody invited Bob. Bob just showed up, right? And this is Bob that we're speaking about. I like to call him Bob. He's the dude where you have this, you guys frequent this restaurant, you go in there, you've got good servers, the bartender knows you, but Bob, he's going to burp and fart and pat the fucking waitress to grab her ass and shit. And now she associates you guys with this asshole. Nobody invited Bob. And Bob is the dude that's at Applebee's, right? And he eats most of his fucking dinner. And then he complains to the waitress, calls her over and says, my burger wasn't how I wanted it. Never mind that you ate it, right? Yeah. I need to see your manager. So the manager comes over, and now Bob's elevated his voice, and he might even be standing up and causing a scene. And what are they taught to do? Diffuse the situation. So I understand this will never happen again. I'll pay for your meal. Here's some dessert for all your shitty little kids. Here's a voucher. Please come back and fucking berate my servers again and treat us all like fucking assholes, right? So he's been rewarded. So he continues to do this behavior over and over and over because they want to diffuse the situation so that other fucking patrons don't feel uncomfortable. And that is where this has come from.
I have an idea.
Yes.
That will save Walmart millions of dollars. Maybe even $1 billion. I bet it could save you $1 billion. Walmart needs to hire MMA fighters.
I should just be able to shock you.
Walmart needs to hire MMA fighters and put them at customer service. And if you have an issue, you have to fight it out with the customer service guy. Just full on fight it out. We'll get a little ring that you can fight it out in. And if the customer wins, hey, you get your free TV. That's fine. So, if the customer doesn't win, hey, so bad, so sad. Walmart just Thunderdomes customer service. It'll stop all those issues.
Okay.
Stop them all.
So I watch these audit videos, right? These cop audit videos. And there's a really good channel. It's called Audit the Audit. And I was watching this video, and this woman calls a police officer on her daughter, and her daughter has come into the house and throwing a tantrum, broke some furniture, right? So there's some arrestable offense here, or some, at least detain them.
Right.
So the son is like, are you going to go arrest her? He's like, yeah, we're going to go and check. He goes, you better fucking arrest her. I want your badge number. He's like, hey, you're not going to talk to me like that. He's like, you're a fucking public servant. You work for me, motherfucker. And the dude's like, I'll take my badge off and I'll whip your ass right fucking now. He's like, no, you won't. I'm recording this. And the dude reaches out and fucking smacks the kid. Right. And by kid, I think he's like 18, 19 years old. And he takes his badge off and puts a fucking ass beating on this kid. He's like, you're losing your job. But the kid opened his mouth and was clearly, this had happened many times. The officer lost his job. He is no longer a police officer, but
Whatever.
But I'll bet you that kid does not do that shit again.
I mean, if he knows, here's the thing.
Yeah,
if he knows,
he probably got
if
paid
he
out.
knows
He
the
probably
cop
got an award
lost
for
his
it.
job, and if he got a little cash in his pocket, he probably does it every time he sees a police officer. I mean, there's
so.
something to say. There's something to say about an old timey. There's something to say about old timey years gone by when a cop could give you a noogie, right? When he could thump you on the head with a stick. We were much more politer then, and you didn't have the problems that you have now. I mean, I don't know. The issues. The future's going to be more Thunderdome than we think.
On the other hand, I do like the videos where they're like, "Are you Mr. Willis? I don't answer questions." Have you seen some? I don't answer questions. They don't know what to fucking do with it. I don't answer questions. They get so like,
I don't answer questions. Yeah,
I don't answer questions.
I mean, within your legal right, you don't have to answer any questions.
Dana, my lawyer, James's lawyer, everybody's lawyer, says, if I could go back in the past and tell any of my clients one piece of information, it would be, don't speak to the police officers.
Yeah, if they're coming there,
don't talk to the cops.
If they're coming there to talk to you specifically, like, if they're coming there to talk to you specifically about you specifically, you should not say anything. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter whether you've committed a crime, not committed a crime. You're 100% innocent. There's nothing that you're going to say that is going to be in your favor. If they've come there specifically to talk to you.
So I saw another one, right? And this local sheriff deputy pulls somebody over, has a partner, and she looks a little crackhead, right? And she's very polite, does everything they ask for. They stop her for 5 over or some shit, right? And she's on the way from her hospital where her father has been in the hospital for weeks, and she's staying at the hospital with him. Hey, this is just something I normally do. I got the police dog on the way. We're just going to see if he alerts on anything. But if you want to speed this up, just give me consent. I'll just look through your stuff real quick. And when she's like, sure, no problem. He plants methamphetamines, plants it in her shit, like on the camera. So she goes, she's like, that's not mine. She's telling the police officer. The female rolls up. Obviously, the female cop knows this lady. She's like, oh, you're going to jail again. And something happens. I don't know what triggered this, but she was in jail for 17 days. Gets out no contest, right? So she doesn't plead guilty, doesn't plead innocent, whatever. Right. They let it. Somehow they end up looking at this dude. His father was the head of drug task force, so he wants to be on drug task force. He is not on drug task force. So he has to make
arrests.
So he has arrested. They found that they admitted to internal affairs or the FBI or somebody starts unraveling this shit. They find 30 people who were in jail that they immediately let out and say they have him on video to 30 fucking drug plants that this dude planted.
Yeah, there's bad apples everywhere you go.
And what he said was, almost never does the drug dog show up. Don't ever give consent to search. Don't ever give consent to search. The drug dog usually doesn't show up, and a lot of that dogs, it's not admissible in court.
It's not. Yes, and the Supreme Court has already thrown dog indications out, and
because dogs are amazing animals.
Yes,
but they can give a hand signal so that the dog will.
Yeah,
alert.
and it's the other thing too that most people, because you have animals, but the system that they use to train those dogs is a reward system. So when the dog is brought out to the scenario that it has been training for the last 5 years, when you bring the dog out to the car, the dog knows if I want a treat, I got to find some shit. Whether I find it or not, all I have to do. And the other thing too is nobody discloses what an indication is. So for example, let's say the dog runs around your car.
Yeah, does it sit?
Sniffs everything. Yeah, sniffs everything out, sits down next to the handler. The handler can immediately go, oh, he indicated. And so that's why the Supreme Court's like, it's bullshit. You can't use it anymore. It's not admissible.
So here, when I was in juvenile hall, right? I turned 18 in juvenile hall, came home a couple days before Christmas. I had just gotten home. I was home like the day I got home, probably, right? Mom goes to work. She works at General Dynamics. This police officer, everybody said this cop was an asshole. His name was Matt Backer. And he was one of the SWAT cops that chased us for the BB gun wars, right? So I knew Matt Backer, right? But I always thought Matt was like an okay dude, right? But at high school, Matt Backer, he's an asshole, right? He'll come and crash the party. I was never invited to the party, so I never experienced it. Right. So, but I knew who Matt Backer was. Matt comes over to the house and he's like, "Hey man, somebody said you had broke into a house with this other guy, and you beat a man's dog to death with a baseball bat." And I said, "That wasn't me." He's like, "Well, do you mind just coming?" I don't know. I don't remember how I got in the car, right? I don't know if I willingly went or I felt like I had to. I was on probation, actually. I was just out of juvenile hall, right? So I'm on probation. So he takes me down to the station, and I'm like, "This isn't me. This isn't me. This isn't me. Attorney. Call my mom. Finally, after hours of this shit, handcuffed in a room at the police precinct, little police precinct in San Diego, Mom ends up coming down. And Mom points out, and I was just like in shock. I fucking just scared to death.
Right.
Mom points out, when did this happen? Oh, last week? Yeah, John was in juvenile hall in Orange County last week. It can't be him. But it's just a trip. Like, you try to communicate and you try to explain your situation. They don't give a shit. Like, they still fucking put me in the back of the cop car, fucking drove me wherever, and I was there all fucking day. And they're like, "Well, we'll get back to you, investigate." Like, you never get an apology, nothing. No. So you always have that in the back of your mind. Like, I am very friendly. I have tons of friends that are cops, right? But cops are people. We know from being around law enforcement, especially like in Oceanside, they do what they fucking want to do. And when they're not your friend, they are not your fucking friend.
True. I mean, the reality is they have a job to do. And if, you think about I mean, I feel like that my true friends, I have very few friends. I think my true friend, a couple of my true friends that were in law enforcement, I feel like if, let's say I did something wrong, which would have been like, let's say I smuggled an M1 Abrams into the country.
You get an anonymous phone call,
and
run.
Was hiding it in my garage. I feel like I would get a 15-minute head start. And if I didn't get a 15-minute head start, I also do believe that those individuals would be there at the door to ensure that I didn't just get shot and be like, "Hey, you need to get a lawyer." This, I think those individuals would have been even in a worst case scenario, like let's say I killed somebody, I still feel like they would be like, "You're going to jail. This is what you need to do.
You murdered somebody, or you justifiably killed them."
Anybody
like they find out you're a serial killer.
Anybody,
like what kind of killed?
Anybody that I killed was justified. But I feel
do you think serial killers think that?
Of course they do, because they're sociopaths. Of course they don't. There's no remorse. They're outside the. That's why they're able to do the things they're doing. Like, it's just the way they're able to do the things they do. They don't feel empathy for what they're doing. So yes, they're justified in what they're doing. They feel they're justified in what they're doing. I think that my close friends that were in law enforcement at the time, I think they would have at least either a 10-minute head start or here's the lawyer's phone number, here's what you have to do. But again, they have a job to do. So I mean, it's one of those things. Like, let's say, well, I'll just use Oceanside SWAT. Most of those guys knew you. Right?
They would not execute the warrant.
Most of those guys knew you.
Yeah. One of them was a confidential informant on my case.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And he left as soon as my shit happened. He no longer worked there and went to work. He actually works in Temecula, last I heard.
But I feel like when you're
Dan Warren, he was supposedly a SEAL.
You're a police officer and you know somebody, socially you know somebody. You don't really know anybody anymore, but socially you know somebody, and then you get a warrant that says, hey, this guy has been fucking stealing cars for the last month, chopping them up at this chop shop. And I have all this paperwork that's like, John Willis has been doing all this shit, all this illegal shit. Man, I didn't even know he was doing this shit.
Would it not cross your mind?
You're obligated.
Would it not cross your mind that there's no fucking way this was John Willis? This is a setup.
I don't think so. And I'm just saying from a law enforcement perspective, not from a outsider perspective.
I say this
because law enforcement have to deal with that shit all the time.
Because you know, they eat their own. And the fucking FBI even said, we are never fucking wrong.
Yeah, well, I know
this is never fucking wrong. And they were wrong, and the fucking feds were not going to try. They weren't going to do. Another fucking a person from the task force went next door and found out it was that kid, right?
I understand. But
if it wasn't for that one fucking officer that was there,
even if you,
how long would he be in prison? They were so fucking convinced, right? I
don't know.
And I believe more often when they are wrong, they're never going to admit they were wrong.
I don't know. I don't think. I think it eventually would have played out. I think it would eventually played out in his favor, and I don't know if eventually they would have figured out what the problem was on why they were there. I don't know if they would have figured it out. He probably would have lost his job. There probably would have been a long court battle, but the issue would have been, the reality and the issue would have been in court is that federal agency would have been saying, we know you did this crime, but we have no proof that you did meaning because there wasn't any proof. Well, there wasn't any local proof. They
said they did know, and they said they had proof, or they wouldn't have been there.
That's only because
I believe there's a lot of people in prison who don't have the means or the ability to fight the federal government. Because here's what the feds do: they come at you and they're like, "All right, we got you 25 years. You go ahead and we'll bust this down to 3 years." Mm-hmm. And you go ahead and we'll just put you in federal prison for 3 years instead of 25. And most people, because you were literally in the federal system, you are guilty until you can prove do you want to tell the story?
No.
We've told it before publicly.
Have we? Yeah.
Don't tell the name.
Again, someone who is above reproach. So this individual is above reproach. The reality is he has and always has been like a golden boy rock star.
He's the Eagle Scout.
He is the Eagle Scout. He is straight and narrow. His arrows always hit perfectly. Golden, just super trooper. Actually was being groomed to be the number. I mean, people should be able to figure this out, but it was being groomed to be the number 2 in the entire Orange County Sheriff's Department. Federal agents, along with local municipalities, approached the sheriff about child pornography and said, we have reason to believe that this individual is downloading child pornography. The sheriff was like,
here's a better question, right? Google can lock down and do whatever the fuck they want to do. Why don't they just remove the child pornography, right? They haven't done that.
I don't know. I don't know why.
Because they use it as a fucking weapon.
I guess
if they want to disappear somebody.
I guess it's just a big business. Well, I would say that you think about the FBI, they probably have a whole division that's in charge of investigating child pornography crimes. It's a business. It's like the narco war
on Instagram right now.
Mm-hmm.
I watched a video the other day on Instagram, and this mom, whoever she was like, "There's child pornography right now on Instagram," and all you do is you go look at all these little, you look at these pageant kids, right? All these moms and pushing this pageant shit. So you find these accounts where they have 100,000 viewers on them. And they're pageant kids, right? So it's a 10-year, 9-year-old, 8-year-old, 12-year-old little girl doing pageant shit. And they've got 100,000 followers, and you start looking at the followers, they're all men, and you start reading the comments. All the comments are like eggplant emoji with fucking ejaculates and shit. So you click on that profile, and then you read the profiles in there, and you start. There's codes, right?
Yeah, if you go down the rabbit
like
hole.
when you look at Pizzagate, like hot dogs were boys, pizzas was little girls, and you just start looking, and then you search these emojis and these hashtags that are used. You find offering, trade for trade. They're trading pictures for pictures. Set up an appointment for, and now a lot of that's probably feds, but a lot of it is also real shit. Like it is on Instagram. It is on fucking Twitter. You can find all of it if you're looking. Now I would be very careful. I don't think I would even go look for that shit.
They have specific rules on how they do it. You can't, like, I don't know, if you look up, if you were on your thing and you're like teenage girls,
that can be 18.
It can be 18, but again, if you are looking at something specific like that and child pornography ends up in there, and you're like, oh, not the site I want, and you go to another site, they're not going to come after you because the way they do it is they have pictures and stuff that
I can tell you how they do it.
Yeah, they have pictures and stuff though that they've already been proven in, because the hard part is, is she 18 or is she 15?
It's the starter pack, right?
Yeah.
We have a buddy that had to work a case. Right?
Starter pack, yeah.
So he had to go into the FBI and they have like a skiff. And he's like, it's the most horrible shit you've ever seen. He's like, you will become desensitized to this. But he's like, you can see the evolution, right? Here's the starter pack. These are the pictures that everybody has in the beginning. And then they receive them and then they send them out. This is the starter pack. This guy actually generated his own stuff by touching his niece or whoever and took photos and introduced those into the system. He said, but it's that starter pack and they know when you open it, right? They send that out. It's received through email. And nowadays, you could take anybody. You could if they took Elon Musk right now, right? The golden boy who fucking everybody loves or everybody knows. All they have to, if they want to, you're going to know they're going to go after these guys when you start hearing kiddie porn.
The problem with
accusations, and they don't have to do it. They're going to put it there.
That's the problem. That's the problem. The problem is,
you have kiddie porn.
I mean, the problem is
didn't Hunter Biden had kiddie porn on the laptop? Like they said he has. We're not talking 18.
Yes.
We're talking young children. Hunter Biden's niece wrote a book and said that he molested her in the shower, right? So there's a precedence of it from a family member, and then you have more underage children. But balloons, worry about balloons. Go ahead and finish. But they'll use it against you.
They'll use it against you, and that's the problem with
radioactive.
The problem with modern technology. The problem with modern technology is the reality is all they have to do is say you have it, and you're fucked because. The FBI has already proven over the last couple of years or after the last 10 years that they will plant evidence, that they will doctor evidence, that they will do whatever they need to do in order to get the outcome that they are looking for. Good, bad, indifferent, it doesn't matter. The minute you start taking fruit from the poison apple tree, you're tainted. It does. Again, this is the problem. This is kind of like Miley, our fucking current Secretary of Defense. Is he SecDev or is he? I don't know. But Miley, I do not know why the rest of the general officers have not pulled him aside and beat the living shit out of him.
Pillow party.
That have not given him a fucking blanket party because
Code Red.
You are tainting the whole barrel. It's just like the stuff we talk about with law enforcement, right? Where we talk about, cops that do dirty shit and cops. You could have 10,000 great cops that are out there doing a great job. You throw 100 shitheads in there that are fucking doing illegal shit, that are fucking doctoring evidence. You've tainted that whole barrel. It doesn't matter how good it doesn't matter how good and noble you think you are. If the dude in the car next to you is willing to fucking cut corners and do what is necessary to get the prosecutions that he thinks he needs to get, then you're just as culpable. You're culpable. It's no different than, the New York City Police Department in the 60s when they were fucking moving coke through Brooklyn. Everybody is culpable to that problem, even if you're not the one doing it. Even if you've turned your back and you're like, hey, I'm not going to, I know that those officers are dirty, but I'm going to do a great job. You are just as dirty. I mean, I know there's a lot of police officers that aren't going to think about it this way, but if you know about it and you're allowing it to happen, you're just as dirty as they are because you're tainting the whole department.
Yeah.
And that's the problem
And
with
then
what's
you have-
going on in
and then you also
law
have-
enforcement.
You have cops that you have people, this dude's dirty, right? But he's just so good you can't get him. So they're just going to plant some shit. But every now and then they plant some shit on a normal fucking person. They are so sure that this dude's doing this shit that they will fabricate what they need to get him to go away.
Well, that's the tainted part. Okay, the tainted part is this: if you have people in your agency, whatever agency it is, and they're willing to cut corners, like, okay, Randall is selling illegal nachos out of his basement. We know he's selling illegal nachos out of his basement. He's putting pork products on them. It's a fucking mess. He's selling these illegal nachos out of his basement. But he's good.
Using that fake pump cheese.
Yeah, fake pump cheese. He's good. We never, every time we hit his...
If your cheese is liquid and you didn't have to heat it up, it ain't cheese.
Yeah, it's not real cheese. Every time we hit him, he got no nachos. He's always legit.
Eats the nachos.
But we know that he is the nacho guy. And, kids are out on the street. They're strung out on his nachos. So we want to get him. So we plant nachos in order to make the conviction. He's been in and out of jail a bunch of times. Nobody's going to question it. We're doing the right thing because we're getting him off the street. You've just tainted your entire system. Once you do it once, you're going to do it again. And the problem is you've created doubt.
It's like the first time you did crack.
Nobody
did crack once.
You've now created doubt in a system, which fuck that. I mean, that if you're a law enforcement officer and your buddy is doing something outside the framework because it's for the good, it's never for the good. Never for the good.
We actually know a guy, and the conversation started with the first time I did crack. Like, what the how many times did you? He's like, twice.
You don't do
I'm
it
like,
once.
You can't do crack just twice. He's like, yeah, I only did it twice. I'm like, we can be friends. Like, fucking, I got to hear the rest of this.
Yeah.
Okay, so finish the story.
Okay, so they go to the sheriff, and they're like, hey, we're gonna do a high risk warrant against one of your
all-star players.
One of your all-star players. We know all his training and background, so we're gonna blow up his garage and burn down his house so we can arrest him. Sheriff's like, okay, first off, you got the wrong guy. This is not legit, and he works directly for me. If you feel like you have to do something, I can literally call him, have him come into the jail, and you can do your investigation from the jail where he will be unarmed because he's in the jail. And so they reluctantly were like, okay.
Which also, by the way, that's kind of how that went with David Koresh. So like the sheriff was like, hey,
Sheriff, I can pick him up
don't
anytime.
do this. He runs in here and eats at this diner every morning.
Yeah, I can pick him up anytime you want.
I can sit down with him and you guys can do whatever you need to do.
Yeah, we can pick him up anytime you want.
That's the Branch Davidians, Waco, for you guys that don't know.
So they do. The sheriff calls him in and brings him into the office, or brings him into the jail. You got to check your gun when you go into the jail, and a couple FBI agents are waiting for him, and they're like, we are executing a warrant on your house
right now.
We're executing a warrant on your house, and this all-star player is like,
Did he laugh?
he's going through his head. The truth is, he was going through his head, and he's like,
What are they here for?
he's like, what did Scully get me in trouble for this time?
Is that really?
I was the first thing that popped into his head, because
of our thing.
No, yeah, I think because of our thing, because I'm a degenerate.
When they raided the shop, we had already locked all. Every Tuesday or Wednesday, Tuesday. I would go every Monday night to the ATM and pull $300 out. And I had 4 ATM cards, so I could pull $1,200 out. And every Tuesday morning, I would go and buy all of the DVDs that came out. So I would go to Costco. I had a business membership, so Costco opened first. So I'd go buy all the DVDs at Costco that came out. And then we would go, usually Mike Bornfriend and I, or even you and I did it a bunch of times. And then we would go to Einstein Bagels and eat, and we go to Starbucks Coffee. I don't think you ever got coffee.
No, never. Drink
But I go to Starbucks, Einstein, and then Starbucks, and then we'd go to Best Buy right there and buy all the DVDs they had that Costco didn't have, right? I did that every morning. So the morning they executed the raid, it was either a Tuesday or Wednesday. I had gone the night before, pulled out cash. I had $1,200 in my pocket, and Michael Bornfriend and I were at the shop, and we had already locked all the doors. All the building was compartmentalized. So we had a gate in the middle, and we'd lock that, and there was a gun safe there where all the guns were locked up. And then we'd come into the next room, and we'd lock that, and it was like a security gate. So we had locked all the doors. Well, when they were executing the warrant, they flashbanged the back of the shop, expecting us to go backwards to see what the noise was as they came in the front door. Well, we'd already locked the building up. So we heard it, and I'm like, what was that fucking bang? And I go, one of the tires must have, because we'd been at MDR. We'd been out at the races in Vegas the weekend before, and a tire blew up we were standing next to. It just fucking exploded, right? And it kind of sounded like that. So I'm like, weird. One of the tires blew up on the Suburban. I had big 40-inch tires on the Suburban, 44s. But we meet them at the front door, and they're hitting the door. We see them coming as we're coming, looking out the showroom. You see a bunch of guys in gear, which wasn't weird to see because they always came over training at Camp Pendleton. They would come over and buy gear and shit. But the dude had a bullhorn, but we couldn't really, it's like his bullhorn was turned down. We heard something, but never did I think search warrant or anything weird, right? Until they hit the door. Now the door is like 2x6s with glass, and it's like 100 years old. They hit the door, boom. And I'm like, hold on, I'll open the door for you guys. And it still didn't register like, hey, this is weird. So the second time, boom, they now have broke the window, but they still haven't opened this rickety ass door with their fucking battering ram. And I'm like, hey, I'll open the door. And then boom, the door opens. And then boom, I'm fucking gun-faced. And the dude comes in, he's like, get on the ground, get on the ground, get on. I'm like, I don't even know what I was thinking. I'm like, B&E. I go, Bureau of Narcotics Enforcement, and I'm getting on the ground. And that dude, the first guy, the second guy trips, and the third guy falls over him. And I'm on my knees, and a gun slides right. I go, Mike, don't fucking move. They're going to fucking kill you. They're going to kill us. So I'm laying on the ground, and I'm looking at him and go, Bureau of Narcotics Enforcement. I go, they're in the wrong place. Because we always let them use our place for drug dogs, right? They would come in and plant drugs. And we were cool with all the fucking law enforcement. I mean, everybody. And I'm like, are you guys with Bureau of Narcotics? He's like, shut up. We'll talk to you in a minute. And I'm like, they're in the wrong place. They're in the wrong place. And I'm like, and then it's running through my head. I'm like, maybe they're looking for an illegal alien. Like, because we had done all that, like 9/11 had happened. All of our people were above board. Like we'd done paperwork on all of our employees and everything. But I was just running into it. And then they go, are you John Willis? I'm like, oh shit, they're in the right place. And it kind of like shit. From there. Yeah. But go ahead and finish your.
The interesting part that John doesn't tell you about that story is 2 police officers came in earlier that day.
Oh yeah, that morning.
They came in earlier that day.
They said they were INS.
And confirmed. So basically.
So yes, there was 2.
They confirmed that John was there.
2 guys walk in. I was there by myself first at about 6 a.m. And Mike didn't get there till about 7:30 when we were rolling out. They were going to execute the warrant probably about 7:30, 8 o'clock. But they had there. You're right. I'd forgotten all about it. 2 INS agents come in, and they're like, "Hey, we want to get a quote for 100 holsters." And I go, "No problem. What do you got?" And they had SIG. They just got SIG 228s, the compact 226. And I'm like, "Absolutely." And I actually printed out I ginned up a quote for them to do. I think it was 100 holsters, and at any time, but I was the only person in the building alone with 2 federal agents from, it was NIS, Naval Investigative Services. And they could have been like, hey, we need you to sit down right here, put these handcuffs on.
Yeah, you're under
we have to
arrest.
but they came back literally an hour later.
Yeah, they so obviously in that type of operation, they're getting ready to do a raid. They're spinning all this stuff up. They had to confirm that he was actually there.
That was a forward reconnaissance team.
They had to confirm.
They wanted to do the raid, and local law enforcement wouldn't do the raid. San Diego Sector ATF actually refused to do the raid, and they brought in Bureau of Narcotics Enforcement out of Los Angeles, and they were meeting one block over and one up at the train station, at the Amtrak station.
But the reality is, this is kind of some of the things I've said before, is the militarization of law enforcement. The reality is, he could have been arrested any time, right? They could have any time during normal, well, not normal, because John doesn't work normal business hours.
To prove your point,
they could have walked in.
I was there alone all the fucking time.
Yeah. At
midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and my apartment was one behind the alley. The apartments back there, I had it wasn't really an apartment. It was like a real shitty,
kind of condo
house
maybe
thing,
townhouse
but
maybe.
If you had set a surveillance team on me,
which they had done for a year,
for 18 months, they actually followed us with aircraft to Las Vegas 3 separate times. They spent $1.8 million on the investigation, had 17 phone lines tapped. They could have just
they could have walked in and arrested John anytime they wanted.
Any fucking time.
But when you militarize law enforcement, you got fucking MRAPs and 240 Gulfs and flashbangs and all that shit. You have to justify the use. And the way you justify the use is at the end of the year, you say, we use this equipment this many times throughout the year. And so what you're seeing is law enforcement agencies they're lowering the criteria of when that tactical gear gets used throughout the year in order to justify the need to have that gear.
Do you know that they had Brett's wife at the house?
Oh, yeah.
And they still fucking IV charged. They water bagged his door. They explosive entered his door.
Because
she's like, here's the keys. Do you know that they had Jennifer? They had my wife. They caught her. She was coming up. She saw when she came back, she was taking Yukon, my Staffordshire Terrier, had his ears done. And she was coming back with the dog. They stopped her because she couldn't get to in front of the shop. She said there was so many black Suburbans there. She said that she thought that she thought, I'm going to come in and John's been killed. Somebody has killed John. She didn't even think we were in trouble. She thought somebody killed me. So the cops grab her and they start making her pull her shirt up so they can take pictures of her tattoos. Like, it made no, are you so-and-so? Yes, I'm so, and she's like, so they take her over.
Was she on the arrest warrant?
No.
I don't know how they could.
They did.
Require.
They fucking stopped her. She had the keys.
Yeah.
So she's at the apartment, right? They've already broken into the apartment, and they're starting to use hydraulic spreaders. My apartment sat on top of garages, so it's on the second floor. The first floor is all garages, and I had 3 of them, and they're using the hydraulic spreader, literally breaking the fucking supports that hold the apartment up. They're jacking them open to get the garage. And she's like, hey, I have the keys to the, they're like, we don't care. And then they're rolling in. They had rolled up a bunch of motorcycles. And she's like, why are you taking the motor? Well, John stole these from the Marine Corps. She goes, John just bought those 2 blocks up from the Yamaha shop. You got paper? She's like, no, but it's in the apartment. Yeah, we have it. She's like, well, you can take care of it later. And then they roll out a Craftsman tool chest and she goes, why are you taking the Craftsman tools? Well, John stole these from, she goes, I bought those on my Sears card last week for Valentine's. Oh, so yeah. Valentine's Day. So it was right around February there. So they go, you got a receipt? She goes, yeah, I actually do. And they fucking put the tools back. They didn't put it up the gangplank going into these. They brought trucks to move really heavy shit and then had to go up the gangplank. That's why when they pulled all the ammo out of the shop garage, they only took half of it because they got tired of fucking carrying this shit up the rails.
Charge is that's the thing. The charge is the charge is the charge. They don't need it all.
Yeah.
And they left all the stuff, and then they left all the stuff there that was the reason why the whole investigation started in the first place.
They left their shot. There was never any guns at my apartment. They left one of their 870s with a Surefire 4-inch in my apartment. One of their guns.
Yeah.
Fucking nuts.
That's interjurisdictional, and that's that issue of just the reality is like when you think about the water charge on the door. The problem becomes this. The problem becomes this. And from a law enforcement perspective, right? We're spinning up. We're gonna go take down these mastermind criminals. We need all our tactical gear.
You've laced me up in this corset. I'll be damned if I'm taking my fucking my bustier
That's it.
and corset off.
That's exactly
We're gonna
it.
use this gear.
We've
never used a water charge, but I just went to tactical T's, right?
Yep.
Tactical
And I got
explosive entry school. We're going to fucking blow this door.
Well, the
And they
reality
did.
is, I have to justify why we need to go to that school, and how I justify why we need that go to that school is to blow somebody's door up, right? We successfully entered this criminal domicile using this water charge. Everybody needs to know how to use this water charge. There's nowhere. I guarantee you. There's nowhere, not a single piece of paperwork. There's nowhere in any report that an officer wrote down where they're like, Mrs. So-and-so was at the door with the keys and was ready to open the door to go into the house, but we decided to blow the door anyways. Nowhere. Because you have to justify all that military kit.
So, yeah, they when they did those spreaders on the garages, that was one of the main supports that held all the bedrooms up of the apartments when they broke those
totally unnecessary.
Yeah, crazy. She had all the keys and everything there.
That was a piece. Here's the other thing. You think about it. They 100% had bolt cutters, but they had a piece of tactical equipment that they're like, okay, hey, we just bought this. It's very expensive. We need to show the chief that we can use it, and we used it on this fucking building, even though all they had to do was clip.
Not only did they have bolt cutters, they probably had Broco torches.
Yeah, I mean, there was a
pry
lot.
bar. I mean, it's just a normal
garage door,
wooden garage door with a fucking shitty $5 hasp.
But we have to justify all this tactical equipment. So
they probably also didn't say, yeah, we came in and vandalized his apartment. We broke all of the drawers for his nightstand.
And they break all your dishes too?
They stole dishes. Anytime I had found these badass, I've looked for them till this day and I've never found them again. I bought these plates that were pretty deep and these bowls that were perfect cereal bowls, but they were matte black. They were just flat black.
I remember.
And when I found more of them, I bought them. It was from like Ross, I think is where I found them. So I had all this shit. And then I bought some Hinkle flatware, like some silverware and stuff. And I'd always buy extras. So I had them sitting in my upper cabinet. They stole them. They took them with them. They liked my silverware. So they broke some of it. They took some of it with them. They took a bunch of DVDs, just fucking took DVDs. Just weird stuff, man.
It looks good on the
report.
report.
A window in my bedroom.
Looks good on the report.
Yeah, left my door off of the hinges, like fucking busted open. Broke my doors. So go ahead with the.
Oh, anyway, so they got him in custody and they're interrogating him about his
child pornography
wants and needs
addiction.
with child pornography, and they still go to his house. Flashbang his house, pull his fucking family out. His dad was there at the time, and all his kids. Pull the family out, handcuff them all,
set them on the curb.
Now this isn't
kids.
Yeah, this isn't.
How old were the kids?
This isn't Compton. This is a very affluential neighborhood, Mission Viejo.
Gated entrance.
Now, not to say that.
There was no gang banging going on.
Certain people should be treated certain ways, but again, there was no, because remember, whenever they're doing anything like that, whenever they're handcuffing a person, what they will tell you is this is for your protection and officer's protection. There was no threat. They had no threat whatsoever.
You had housewife and two children.
They had no threat whatsoever for what they were doing. So they start going through and they can't find what they're looking for.
How old were the kids?
teens. They were teenagers. They were older.
Son and daughter,
son
right?
and daughter. They were older, teenagers. They can't find what they're looking for. So what John was talking about, what they allude to is they have basically when they're doing an investigation, they have a packet. They have a packet that is pictures of minors that have been proven that they are minors in court. So it's not like for example, if you have a bunch of pictures on your computer, they're not making a decision.
Look, guys, these packets that we're speaking, because this is one of the questions I asked of the lawyer I was speaking to. These are not questionable, right?
Yeah, they're not questionable. They've already been proven in court.
15, 16, these are not some 18-year-old girls, 19-year-old girls that can be made to look 15, 16. We're talking about 2 and 3 years. Like, there's no fucking confusion with this. This is no accident.
And the reality of it is they've already been proven in court, so there's case precedent on the actual images. So they don't basically. So no one is arguing in court whether is this girl 15 or is she 18. They're not arguing because they already have case precedents. So that your attorney can't be like, well, these are just young 18-year-olds. They can't do it. They've already been proven to be child pornography. So it's a trap. Anyways, when they think that you're doing, when they find you on the web searching these things out, they'll send that packet to you. They can actually tell when you open the packet, how long you've been in the packet, what pictures you looked at. So for example, let's say the packet shows up, you open it, it's open for 3 seconds and then it goes in the trash. They're going to have a hard case proving. So they actually wait until you peruse the packet. And what they're really hoping for, the reality is what they're really hoping for, because this thing's got poop on it, so everywhere it goes through the internet, it leaves a stinky trail. What they're really hoping for is that you're going to be like, ooh, this is some good shit. I'm going to send it to my buddy who likes this shit too. Like, they want to round up a bunch of people. Like, if you've paid attention to any of the big cases, it's always like 300 people around it. It's because those idiots are sharing the shit back and forth.
Keep in mind too, they're anonymously talking to other people on the internet.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a club where they meet up on Friday night at the Lions Club and they're like, hey, I got some kid porn. And I would be willing to bet that over 50% of those people are also federal agents, right? You see FBI show up to and arrest ATF in a raid, and they have no idea that they're fucking working the same cases.
So anyways, they have this packet, and the packet got sent through the router. Now, so they're asking this individual, and he's like, this is a joke, right? You guys are being funny. Like, you should have come up with something. This is haha funny. They're like, nope, we're never wrong. We know it was you. Where's it at? He's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Who are we talking to right now?
FBI
is talking to your guy.
Yeah.
Okay. So
now
he's at his house now.
No, he's in the jail. Okay. They're interviewing him in the jail. So they bring look at that guy. Ooh, love bug.
Yeah, don't ever crush those. If you crush them, it attracts a ton more. Hopefully he'll just sit there. It's a stink bug.
Were you just going to that's why you were smiling. You were just going to let me eat that?
I thought it was a wasp. I was just hoping it.
You were just going to let me eat it.
Well, I was going to see what would play out on this. I was like, this is going to be real good or real
You were
bad.
just going to let me eat it. So they start interrogating the kids. Well, I think they interrogate mom first, and she's like, they are like, asking her the questions about this child porn, and even she's like, do you know who you're trying to accuse of this? Like, this is the golden child. This is like his farts turn into sunshine. No, you are at the wrong place. You probably want the dude that lives next door.
The weird kid next door.
And they're like, nope, we're never wrong. We have the right location. And so they end up start interrogating Chris's son because, there's the next culpable person. And so they're going through all the computers and they can't find it. And so
even the kids were like, it's the weirdo next door.
They're interrogating his son and they're like, we know you did it. We know, like, they're putting the screws to him. And he's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I think his son didn't even have a computer there. I go, I don't even have a computer here. You're probably talking about the weirdo next door. They're like, nope, we're never wrong. It's here somewhere. We're going to find it. Meanwhile, they're tearing, through Chris's house.
And this is there's not a basement. There's not a hidden room.
They go to, they get Chris's daughter. Same thing.
You just said the name. That's fine. It's
well, yeah. I've said it before. They go through, they get his daughter. They're interrogating her. And she says the exact same thing. It's not us. You're talking about the weirdo next door. And they're like, nope, we're never wrong. So again, they do multi-jurisdictional when they do these raids. They basically will handpick a couple of guys from a bunch of different departments in order to do the raid. Why? Because, again, they don't want favoritism. They don't want people to be like, oh, well, I know him and he's good to go. Well, fortunately, two of the sheriff's department that they brought out of Los Angeles, two of the sheriff officers, were like, we know this guy.
No fucking way.
There's no fucking way. It's not him. It's bullshit. You guys are wrong. And the FBI guy's like, we're never wrong. This is why we're never wrong. Gives them the whole fucking thing. And they're like, we still don't believe it. Well, this whole time, everybody keeps saying the kid next door. And the FBI agent's like, it doesn't matter. We don't have a search warrant for his house. We have a search warrant for Chris. We have a search warrant for this house in Mission Viejo. We're never wrong. It's not the next door neighbor. It's this guy. Plus, we can't even check the neighbor's house. And they're like, well, how about you let us just go see, right? Just let us go see. And the FBI agent's like, well, go ahead. And so these two sheriff deputies, they do the right law enforcement thing. It's what they call in law enforcement following up a lead.
Those are called clues.
Yeah, clues. The blues clues, the little footprints, right? Everybody's pointing you in the right direction. So these sheriff's guys, I mean, it obviously helped that that he was the golden child, right? I'm having that ability to have a little bit of doubt, and so they go next door, knock on the door. Woman answers the door. She's like, hey, what's up? Sheriff's department. Ooh. And they're like, we would like to talk to your son. Is that okay? Can we talk to your son? And she's like, yeah, no problem. He's home. You can talk to him. He's in his room.
Go on into his room.
Go on into his room. And he's in the room with the fucking packet open, looking at all the child pornography that he has been downloading off someone else's router. So he hacked my buddy's router because it had you get your routers. They have simple passwords on them because that was the first thing they said. They're like, do you have a password on your router? Then nobody else can be using your router. Well, the reality is kids in basements could fire nuclear missiles if they really wanted to. There's no such thing as a secure password. But anyways, he had hacked into that router and was using that router to download porn to his computer.
Do you think he did that trying to hide his tracks, like he knew, or do you think?
I'm sure do you
think mom was just like, "You've used too much internet"?
I'm sure that he was trying to.
How old was the kid next door?
I believe he was. I believe he was 18 or a little bit older, or maybe just a little bit younger. He was older, and he had been in trouble before and been in the home and all kinds of shit. So. Clues. Those are all clues.
So at that point, were they like, hey, sorry, guys, we'll take your handcuffs off?
Yes, at that point they were, it's that thing, right? There's still a stink in the air about, like, even though he was completely exonerated.
Trying to find other shit.
Even though he was well, they did, basically. So part of the warrant was when they're doing that is anywhere you can put a computer. So they opened his gun safe, and in his gun safe he had a blue letter. He had a blue letter which was completely legal, AR-15. That means that the department gave him a letter saying he could buy the AR-15. So he had a blue letter AR-15, and he had a fucking 8mm Mauser semi-automatic rifle that was made in the 50s.
So is that a curio?
It was a curio. It was all wood stock, everything. And when they popped the safe, they brought in a Cal DOJ guy, and the Cal DOJ guy was like, yeah, AR-15, he can't have that. That's illegal. And that's an AK-47. So he identified this gun that looks nothing, like not even there is no confusion. If
You would think that the guy, like, you would think they would have a duty expert.
Yeah, there would be no confusion. If I laid an AK down with no magazine in it and this other gun right next to the AK, you would not go, yeah, that's an AK. It's not even close. Not even close. So they misidentified as an AK. They misidentify it, so they confiscate the two rifles, which, by the way, were not part of the search warrant. So they confiscate the 2 rifles. Those end up going with Cal DOJ back up to Sacramento. When everything shakes out, again, my man farts gold. He's a great guy. I could only hope to be. I could only hope and wish to be as honorable and a dude as he is. It all shakes out. You're good. It was a big mistake. We're sorry. Blah, blah, blah. California Department of Justice is like, oh, we fucked up. These guns are legal. You can't have them. We're going to send them to the sheriff's department. So they send his guns back to the sheriff's department. Now, sheriff brings him in. He's like, dude, what a mess, right? But everybody's good. You're good. Go pick up your guns. So the sheriff has told him to go pick up his guns. This is kind of that, the thing that I just couldn't understand. And I'm like, why didn't you just punch that guy?
And now he goes and meets Gollum, the crypt keeper.
He goes and meets the crypt keeper who's running the armory. Goes and meets him. And he's like, Chris is like, I'm here to get my guns. He's like, nope, can't have them. He's like, no, sheriff just told me to come get my guns. California Department of Justice just told you to give me my guns. He goes, nope, can't do it. Your guns are illegal. You don't have a right to have an AR-15, and your other rifle has a grenade launcher on it. And Chris is like, there's no fucking grenade launcher on the other rifle. I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, and he gets the rifle, and it was one of those, it's a Cold War relic.
Because this dude was actually shooting grenades in World War II.
But it had a flip up sight. So it had
every SKS had.
It had a graduated sight on the front, actually for a grenade, like a rifle grenade. You could put a rifle grenade on there, and that's how you aimed it. But it was not a grenade launcher. It was just the sight. And he's like, so you can't have this because grenade launchers are illegal in California. And Chris is like, you're a sergeant, I'm a sergeant. Everybody above you has told you to give me my guns back. Give me my fucking guns back. And he's like, nope, not going to do it. And so I'm like, what's up? You are the man. You're the man. Why didn't you just go in there and take him? And he goes, because I have to have a working relationship with all these people, and I couldn't do it. And he even was like, okay, look, that sight on there is just pinned. Just pop the pin out, take the sight off. Gun's good to go. Because it was a closed box mag, so like it even only held 8 rounds. And he's like, just take that off, and then he goes, and then let me take all the parts out of the AR. You can keep the fucking serialized part, and let me take all the parts out because that's where the expense was anyways. And we'll be good. And he's like, nope. If I let you do it, I have to let everybody else do it. And Chris is, at this point, he's like, fuck you, dude. Just fuck you. And I'm like, wait a minute, though. Because
who kept the gun?
Because the sheriff, it would be stuck in the sheriff's department armory.
So then, they take those and they put them in the San Andreas Trench or whatever.
Wait a minute. It gets even better. It gets even better. So Golden Child, I don't know if he actually did this, but Golden Child is responsible for everything that the fucking SWAT team does. Orange County has one of the premier SWAT teams out there, and it is literally because of what this individual, what my buddy was doing. part of his job was to go into the armory and select firearms.
What am I hearing? Just
People
a
talking?
Dog? Oh, okay. Go
Dog. Part of his job was to go into the armory and select firearms that would be useful.
Are we about to be flashbanged?
I hope not. The door's open. To be useful for the SWAT team, and they could take any parts they wanted off of those firearms and use them in the course of,
Duty.
their duty. Which means he could do exactly what the guy was saying he couldn't do to that rifle. Just ridiculous. I'm like, did you do? I don't think I ever got the proper answer on whether or not he went in and actually did. Because as a terminal staff sergeant in the Marine Corps, I would have walked into the fucking armory and told him to sit down, and then I would have took that AR apart, took every fucking piece I wanted off of it, and went, now what? And walked out. I mean, what? As long as I'm leaving the serialized part,
Yeah.
fuck you.
We knew a guy that worked he was an armorer for SWAT up above Temecula up there.
Yeah.
And they were able to they went to some law enforcement agency in Arizona and were able to get all the confiscations.
Yeah.
And then they would take them back and use them for the SWAT team there. He had a Ryder truck, like a U-Haul truck, full of guns. They were just fucking tossed in the back, like the pictures you see.
Yeah.
And he gets stopped at an agricultural stop or something, coming across the border with Border Patrol or something. They're like, "What are you hauling?" He's like, "Shitload of guns." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Shitload of guns." They open the door and like guns fall out. He's like, "I'm a cop. I'm on the job." But it was just like, just one of those stories that you've seen the pictures of.
That's awesome.
So along the lines of not knowing what the fuck, the duty expert not knowing what they're doing, right? On mine, we had San Diego Zoo, Humane Society, Animal Control, and Zoning was there, right? Because one of those storage units, one of the garages in the back, I had all those snakes back there. And Matt, Valerie's brother, was taking care of all the animals, right? Everything was on timers and shit. So the San Diego Zoo lady, and there's not a lady at the reptile department at the San Diego Zoo. Like, we knew the reptile people. And she's like, "Are any of your animals venomous?" I'm like, "Well, you're the duty expert. I mean, you tell me. Did you see any venomous animals?" She's like, "You don't have to be difficult, sir. You don't have to be an asshole about this. Are any of them poisonous?" I go, "Well, poisonous and venomous, right? Poison is you eat it and you get sick from it. Venomous means it injects it. Did you see, being from the San Diego Zoo, I am sure that you're from the reptile department, right? Did you see any venomous animals?" And she walks away in a huff. And then Animal Control comes in, and we're talking to, I don't know who the head detective was there, Timmons or whoever he was. Yeah. The Animal Control guy comes in, and he's like, "What do you got?" And he's like, "We don't have shit. All these animals are under control. Every animal over 4 foot is in a cage that it can't escape from." Because they were really big for a while in San Diego on constrictors over 4 feet, but they didn't just say boas or pythons, right? It was king snakes and gophers, anything over 4 feet. And he's like, "We don't, nothing." And then the Humane Society came in, and he's like, "This is a really nice setup. Like, he has these chameleons have sprinkler systems that are on timers, and all the lights are in. So it's really nice. Like, they've really taken, I've never seen anything like this." So they're all in a huff, right? Everybody's mad. And the Zoning's lady, "Well, you're not getting off so easy with me. You can't keep reptiles. You're not zoned here." I go, "Actually, Reptile Haven, just right up the street. And I actually buy a lot of these animals from Chris. And we're in the same zoning." She's like, "Oh, we'll see about that." And I'm like, "I breed a lot." She goes, "Do you have permits to breed these?" I go, "I don't need any permits to breed these. I'm not selling them. I just have animals, and sometimes they make babies." But it was always a trip. The people that they sent after you, like the first guy in the door, when they finally stood us up and they're like, "Are you John Willis?" They had a video camera, a little, pocket video camera, and they're videotaping, and they empty my pockets out, and that $1,200. They'd taken the $1,200 out, and they took a knife off, but I still had a handcuff key in my pocket. They never took the handcuff key out. So that's on video. And then they start going all crazy with this shit. He's like, "Do you have any explosives or machine guns?" And I'm like, "No, we don't have any machine guns or explosives, nothing like that." And he comes back and he slams this fucking piece of Play-Doh down on the counter there, on my glass counter. And he's like, "What is this?" I go, "Play-Doh?" I go, it's probably exactly what you think it is, right? You think it's Play-Doh, right? He goes, this is C4. I go, it's not C4. I go, it's Play-Doh. It's a half pound of Play-Doh. And there's a timer that corkscrews into this, and we make 120 of these pouches every month that they take out and put on these mines, and they destroy them, and we keep making this. It's for VSW, very shallow water mine countermeasures. And he's like, doesn't really say anything and kind of storms off. And then he comes back, and he's like, what's this? And I go, it's a 40 Mike prac round with a Mark 19 head in it. It's a 203 practice round, chalk round with a Mark 19 practice head in it. And he's like, there's no such thing as a Mark. I go, well, come on, man. You know that the Mark 19 is the gun that shoots that. I don't know what the designation of the scrap aluminum piece is, but it came from Del Mar Gun Show because they sell them by the 5-gallon buckets. I stuck that in there because it's the same height as an HEDP round so that we can size our pouches. I go, there is nothing illegal there. It's a piece of plastic and a piece of aluminum. So then he kind of goes off, and then he's back bustling around, and there's a radio phone call. He's like, we got you now. And the dude goes running to the back of the shop. And he comes back, and he's like, you're done for. We've got you. And I'm like, what the fuck do they have? Like, he's like, what's all this explosive powder? You're making explosives. I'm like, where is it? He's like, in those big ammo cans and those crates in the back. I go, it's Bead Blast Media. Strider Knives was in the shop. They just moved like 2 weeks ago. It's the media that's why it's rusty, because it has all the iron in it, from the metal. And like, it was always some nonsense. And that was the EOD guy from Sheriff's Bomb Squad from, I don't even know where he was, what sheriff's department he was, but he's a sheriff's bomb guy. And he's like losing his shit over C4 explosives and explosive powder. Like, there was none of that.
It's because that's what they were told, though, right? They were told that all of this stuff was in there. And the hard part is that it's that, I think you would act the same way, John. If I was like, hey, if you go to this trailer, there's going to be all kinds of pussy there, all kinds. Any kind of pussy you can think of is going to be in this trailer. And you go to the trailer, and all you keep finding is dicks. You're going to be, you're going to get more infuriated every time you find a dick. And I guarantee you, that's the thing. All of those guys, from the dude that was battering the door to all of them were briefed that it was some sort of mastermind criminal organization that was going to have all kinds of illegal weapons. And when you think about why they were there, right? The reality, they were there from a falsehood from the beginning. Like, from the very beginning, it was bullshit. Like, they didn't... The reality is, they didn't have there wasn't, 18 months of them following you around, helicopters, fucking whatever they were doing on the ground, surveillance. They didn't have a single piece of evidence that was related to what the warrant was being executed for. Not one piece of evidence. It was like when they picked me up and they're like, we know you're stealing guns from the armory. I'm like, there's guns missing from the armory?
What armory?
I don't have the, like, if 5 minutes, like if as an investigating police officer, and I know I get all this shit from TV, so I may be totally wrong on how this happens, but you would think that they would go, all right, yeah, we think this is a mastermind criminal who is stealing guns out of the armory. Let's go to the armory and see if they're missing any guns.
Did they ask you about train cars?
I never got the train car. I got the dead girl. I got guns out of the armory. But again, all that
Hold on, I gotta pee.
Oh, John's gotta pee. This will be a good time for commercial break. I just want to thank this month's sponsor, Verticola. This brush, there are certain levels, right? If you're in the sports world, you get the one made out of whalebone. But there's a next level, which is what this brush is right here. This is the next level. This is made from the heart of 1,000-year-old acacia tree. Anyways, they chopped down 1,000-year-old tree just to make this brush. And these bristles are actually raptor eyelashes that they heated up. What's that stuff they keep all the DNA in? The sap. They heated up the sap and got all those raptor eyelashes out just for my hair. So I really want to thank Verticola for this very specific brush. It comes in its own hard case. Also made out of 1,000-year-old cicada tree. They actually chopped down a separate tree in order to make the box, the treasure chest. I don't get any money from their sponsorship, but I do get all the mane and tail I can use. So I want to thank Verticola for sponsoring this episode, and always Diet Pepsi. I want to thank Diet Pepsi.
Last episode, you still hadn't gotten a check.
I still haven't got my check from PepsiCo. You guys, checks or here's the reality, Pepsi. Here's the reality. There's one of two ways we can handle this. You can provide me with my lifetime supply of Diet Pepsi,
which won't be long,
or you can send a check. I promise you,
because your product's eating them from the inside.
I promise you, the check will be the cheaper way to go. And no, I have drinking so many of these fine elixirs that I probably will live forever. Thank you, Diet Pepsi. What were we talking about?
What were we talking about?
Where were we? Something about
the dead girls.
Armory.
Oh,
Armory. Armory. Yeah, you would think that they would just do a little. You think they would just do a little bit of investigation and be like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna go to the Armory, or maybe we'll follow Staff Sergeant around and see how he's getting in the Armory, so we can figure out how he's stealing these weapons. Nope, they didn't do any of that. Like the Armory, there would only be 2 armories where this possibly could have happened. 2-1, 1st Battalion, 2nd Marines, or SOI. And guess what? There were no weapons missing. Here's the crazy part. There were no weapons missing from either armories that I would possibly have access to. So the premise of it was bullshit. SOI lost weapons out of their armory after they took me away.
So when I said they put the $1,200 on the counter,
yeah.
They actually put it on. They had on the counter, had all my knife and shit. They took that stuff. I was sitting in a chair out in the showroom, and they set all that stuff on the desk in my office where the computers were. We had some cool ass. We got them from Hunter. He gave us all these desks from like an Apple store, those fucking modern desks. So I'd been handcuffed for 6 hours. They finally unhandcuffed me and throw a like carbon copy piece of paper with custody of stuff that they've taken.
Yeah.
Throw it on the ground. Now they've taken 50 pages worth of shit, but they leave me this little slip that you can barely read. Unhandcuff me. Now in the beginning, when this all went down, there was
the problem. You know what the problem with that is too, where they're actually fucking themselves. Is they throw that little piece of paper down that has those things on it,
10
like
items,
whatever the items are, right? And let's say they get it all back, and the officer's doing inventory, and they find a pound of cocaine. They didn't take it from you,
right?
They didn't take it from you. Well, I have the chain of custody that you did not follow the chain of custody,
right? So. Yes, and with that said, right, the cover of the newspaper the next morning said 46 machine guns.
Yeah,
46 stolen machine guns seized from special operations equipment, stolen from Camp Pendleton.
Well, interesting question about that. Even with the airsofts, so with the airsofts that you had in there, was that number even close? Like, was 46 even a number that was realistic, or was it like really 20?
So I think altogether with the airsofts there was 46.
Okay.
I don't, that's a good question. I don't know.
I feel like that's a made up number.
13 of them were real guns.
Yes.
None of them were short barrel. None of them were assault.
Yeah, none of
them were even illegal in California.
Yeah, none of them were illegal.
But federal agent poses with stolen machine gun.
Which was an airsoft.
Which you could see the wind up wheel.
Yeah.
And he's standing right in front of my shop. So anyways, I don't remember where I was going with this. So the
money.
So the ATF guys, when the raid went down, there was ATF, DEA, FBI, NCIS, CID, bomb squad from somewhere,
narcotics guys,
immigration was there, border patrol, INS and border patrol were there, San Diego Zoo, zoning, animal control, humane. So there's 12 agencies there. The ATF guys immediately go, hey, we realize you know some of our guys. Keep your fucking mouth shut. Literally said, keep your fucking mouth shut and get an attorney. Do not answer any questions. That's what the ATF told me. So I'm handcuffed. They're ransacking my shit. They get me to get up every now and then and look to see how fucked I am when they find the fake explosives or whatever. When I had to piss, the ATF guys were the only guys that unhandcuffed me and let me take a leak. And they, later in the day, before they released me, they're like, hey, we're going to McDonald's. Do you want anything? And they brought me a Gatorade and a fucking hamburger. The ATF dudes, right? You hear all this shit. The ATF dudes were the only cool fucking people out of this. So when I'm released and I'm now out of handcuffs and most everybody is left, there's a few people left, 2 of them being the ATF guys, which now that was kind of weird, right? Because they were also the cool dudes. And then the head detective, whoever that guy was. He's like, okay. So I go back on my desk. I've now put my knife back in my pocket and I go, hey, $1,200 missing. They're like, how do you know it was $1,200? Because I took it out of the ATM the night before because I have 4 cards and I can only take $300 out of each account with Wells Fargo, and I go buy DVDs every day, and today's the DVD day. $1,200. He's like, I don't have it. I go, you took it out of my pocket. He goes, what are you saying? I go, I'm saying that somebody who was in this room stole $1,200. He's like, are you calling me a liar? I go, if you have it, yes, I am. So I'm making a big fucking deal about this. And we're in my office, and the 2 ATF guys go, hey, let me talk to this dude for a minute. And they close the door. There's some tussling and some fucking slamming around and shit. I don't know who put hands on who, but that dude stormed out. The fucking head detective storms out of my shop and leaves, and my $1,200 is back there. He was trying to steal that fucking money. So, I mean, right along with all the rest of the shit that was fucking stolen. Just weird. How often does that fucking,
I mean, it probably happens a lot.
all the fucking time.
It probably happens a lot, actually.
They took 13 guns, all legal, all registered to my mother, most of them. Nothing illegal other than I had possession of them. But they didn't inventory the $2,000 optics or any of the other shit that was on them, right? They took thermals and they took night vision and all kinds of shit, but none of that was inventoried. All they had was the 13 guns on there. No inventory for the airsoft guns. No fucking chain of custody.
Did you get the airsoft guns back?
No, I didn't. No. I got nothing.
Did you get nothing back?
I got nothing. No, we never got the computers back. We never got any of that shit back. None of it. We got the 2 motorcycles.
That's illegal too.
The 2 motorcycles that I was making payments on to Yamaha. Those came back. And that's about all that was returned. That's what we got that back. But we never got the computers. We never got any of the other stuff.
Wild times.
Yeah.
Wild times.
So, like my attorney likes to say, he'll say, hey, take that picture down. I'm like, well, it's all good. He's like, yeah, it is. He goes, I know you're right. You know you're right. On the other hand, you also know what the execution of a federal search warrant looks like. So
true.
Keep that in mind. Just because you're right, that doesn't mean they won't fuck you if they want to make a fucking example out of you.
Well, the reality is once I hate to say it, but once their foot's in the door, it's no different than what my buddy went through, is once their foot is in the door, the goal is to make, there has to be a crime. We've spent money. We spent money. I can't, you think about, your situation, $18 million. If they would have went in there and found nothing,
they still would have arrested
me. They would have had to find something. They've spent too much money.
So
and to execute a warrant, you have to have a crime.
Even when they did, do you know they didn't arrest me then? Even when they had it, they went and sifted through everything and found that they didn't have any of the shit that they thought they had. And then I had an attorney the next day, and we actually called the DA or whoever, and we were on speakerphone, and he's like, hey, I'm representing so-and-so, and if you're going to indict my client or come back and arrest him or whatever, just let us know, and he will surrender himself wherever you want him surrendered. And the guy goes, if your client's not telling us about machine guns or explosives, we got nothing to say to him. And I go, did you find any machine guns or explosives? And then he fucking hung up. So come to find out that's not the attorney I need, right? So I get the real attorney. After they indict, they fucking come back 9 days later, and they have a street sweeper blocking the alley as I'm pulling out again to go get DVDs and coffee. And the street sweeper, and I'm like, I've never seen a street sweeper here. And boom, here comes a van, slides sideways. They rip all the interior out of my truck. Fucking the NCIS guy and the CID guy is like, hey man, you got any information? If you want to just give us information on somebody. I'm like, who? What? They're like, just do the right thing. I go, I don't know what you're fucking talking about. Like, I don't know who they wanted or whatever, but they arrested me. I was in MCC for 9 days because it was a federal holiday. So when I got out,
They do that on purpose.
yeah, of course they did it on purpose, but I still didn't know what I was arrested for. Everything, the indictment was sealed. We went to court 3 more times every 30 days for 90 days, and they still hadn't told me what I was arrested for. They have to give disclosure paperwork.
Right.
So on 60 days, the magistrate or whoever, the judge there, said, if you don't give Mr. Willis and his attorneys the disclosure paperwork, we are dismissing this case. Like, we're just dropping the whole thing. And then when we get the paperwork, there's 4,800 pages. And when you read through all of it, there's like 200 maybe that even have anything to do with me. But confidential informant number 1, and you could hold it to the light and see all the names and shit. So,
Yeah.
So guys, don't,
I actually got 2. So I was sitting, waiting for my attorney, and my attorney came, and she had the package.
unredacted.
No, she had the redacted package. So she had the redacted package. She's like, this is everything that they have, blah, blah, blah. She's going through it. And she's like, I don't see what they're trying to do here. She's like, any of this military gear. She's like, is any of this stuff, can you buy it? Can you buy all? I go, first off, none of the stuff that they are accusing me of stealing is currently used by the military. It's all surplus, and you can buy every bit of it
Weren't they on about a bunch of SOE gear you had too, weren't they?
Yeah, it was just gear in general because they just didn't know. And so they're like, I'm like, every bit of this can be bought out in town. And again, outside of the water cans, I had water cans, Scepter water cans. Outside of the water cans,
we had 400 of those.
every one of them, everything there was surplus gear, meaning the military still didn't use it. And so she's like, I don't understand. This is bullshit. And she was like, all this is bullshit. The assault weapon thing she wasn't sure about, and straw purchase she wasn't sure about. She's like, whatever. Well, so she gave me that packet. I had that packet, and I was still sitting. And then we talked about all the stuff and all the charges and everything, and then she left. I'm still sitting in that room waiting for them to take me back. Marine comes in. He's like, hey, I'm supposed to give this to your attorney. And there's, big ass thick envelope. He's like, I'm supposed to give this to your attorney. I'm like, she's not here. She just left. And she was awesome, by the way. I really should remember her name, but she was fucking awesome. And he's like, well, it's for your case anyways, here. And he gives it to me. And it was everything.
Unredacted.
Nothing was redacted.
So did yours say Chris Osmond,
Yes.
Rick Reardon,
Yep.
Dan Warren?
Yep.
3 confidential informants.
Yep.
Who all hate each other and have eaten their own.
Yeah.
Now.
So, I mean, it was definitely an interesting experience. And it was definitely an interesting, different experience. I feel like the military justice system worked well. I mean, I feel like it worked well. I feel like I feel like initially I got great representation. The individual who came onto my case afterwards came to join my first counselor, I probably should have said no to, because he was his next job was prosecuting attorney, so he was more concerned about closing the case than proving any of the stuff, than actually going through a full court martial. So, but I feel like that, all in all, I think the system, I mean, when you have a judge when you have a judge writing a letter to the commanding general on your behalf about how fucked up this whole case was, and they didn't have anything, and this should have never come to this level. That, you know, I was quietly surprised when Sergeant Major Booker told me that. I was like, oh, shit, if you get the letter, I'd love to see it. And he actually sent me the letter, and it was really good. But again, you know, it was just a humbling experience. The good news was I was a terminal staff sergeant. And because I was a terminal staff sergeant, I could get away with so much shit.
How many years did you do in the Marine Corps?
20.
Why did you only do 20?
Because of terminal staff sergeant.
Okay. Do you know they're keeping dudes for 30 now?
Yes.
Okay. So,
they're keeping dudes for 30 mandatory.
yes, mandatory. Absolutely.
Like
Can't get out.
mandatory.
Okay. Remember the kid? The kid who, when I was delivering pizzas when I first got home from prison, rolled up in his garage and he had a bunch of gear in his garage?
I don't
SOE
remember,
gear.
but
I roll into Murphy Canyon Housing and I'm like, hey, I built all that gear. And then he's like, yeah, whatever. He worked for you.
yeah, he was in one of the Stapletons.
Did you know this?
Yeah, I know it.
Or did you see the comments?
I saw the comments.
Yeah. So I have a long email from him, actually, I need to give to you.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what are you doing now? He's like, they won't let me out.
Yeah.
I'm doing a full fucking 30.
It's retention. They can't first off, they can't retain qualified individuals.
Well, too many Kool-Aid hairs.
They can't retain and they can't recruit. Simple. This is really simple. It's really simple, Marine Corps. If you just take the last 5 years, crumple them up in the trash and throw it away and go back to
All of our military.
1988 and just implement all the policies from 1988, your recruitment is going to go up, your retention is going to go up, because people join the Marine Corps to be warfighters. They don't join for any other reason. Warfighters. If you just get rid of all your bullshit and just close with and destroy the enemy by fire and maneuver, you will have your retention issues fixed.
Just build your recruitment movies and your recruitment videos to look like Russia and not like the last dozen you've put out.
Even if you go back to the stupid commercials where the dude's slaying the dragon, that's better than what you're doing right now.
Even if you did when they hired the Village people to do, we're in the Navy.
I'm sure that would help the Navy.
It would be better than what they're doing now.
I'm sure it'd help the Navy, but that's the issue. The issue is we have put policies in place because our Secretary of Defense, Miley. It's really Miley.
Smiley.
It's really Smiley. I can't.
Lipstick Miley.
I know I'm probably giving him a job that he doesn't have, but it's because of him and the policies that they're putting forward that the U.S. military no longer is the sharpest knife in the tool shed anymore. You know what's interesting? We've been shooting down unidentified flying objects.
12 of them.
We've been shooting these unidentified
that they
flying
say.
objects down. And do you know who has not had any part whatsoever in any of this? Space Force.
Oh, yeah.
Space Force.
Because they're not on this planet anymore.
Space Force is not space. You would think that Space Force would have sent up a F-24 Raptor and shot down, like they would have went into space, came back, shot down the unidentified.
So the last one they used an F-35 stealth fighter.
Well, they've been using
The F-22.
They've been using different aircraft.
Almost like they need to test them.
I think what I think it is I think what they're doing is checking the parameters of the systems to make sure the systems will identify the target, because they did shoot one down with an F-16.
Oh.
And the F-16, I mean, again, I said this in like 2 podcasts ago. F-16s, the reality is fucking 1990, 1980 F-16s can take on pretty much any military in the world. It's a misnomer to think that the Chinese and the Russians are near peer. They're not near peer. They're not. We're not going toe to toe. The Russians and the Chinese have 2 things. They only have 2 things that are an issue. Or between the 2 of them, they only have these 2 things that are an issue for our military, and that's just bodies. They have the bodies to throw into the fight. So, you know, when we have 100,000 guys in uniform, ready to go to fight, the Russians could put 300,000 troops in the field. Now, they're not going to be well trained. They're going to be terribly equipped, and their tactics are going to be for shit. But again, it's just pure numbers. It's the only reason why they beat the Germans. Sheer numbers. You can only manufacture so many bullets. Same thing with the Chinese. The Chinese have numbers, but the problem with the problem for the Chinese is they are completely landlocked, and their navy sucks. Contrary to the Defense Department telling you that they have some great navy, just look at, if you think that the Chinese have a navy that is near peer, just look at tonnage.
When they give
the
their
tonnage
numbers,
differences between the U.S. and the Chinese.
when they give their
don't even come
numbers,
close.
they count all their little civilian boats and all that shit.
Yeah, their tonnage doesn't even come close.
So China just changed the parameters. Like, they don't have a constitution or whatever, but they've changed the parameters that dictate military service.
Yeah.
So the average U.S. citizen in China is 38 years old. The average U.S. citizen in the United States is 28 years old. China is just running out of people, and they have made it mandatory that all males and females age 18 and above, 18 to, so there's a cutoff in there, have to serve in military service. And once you're notified, you have 30 days to report. And a lot of people say that that's part of that whole, their COVID policy when they had that app on there.
Yeah.
They're building camps, like confinement camps right now, and maybe that's for objectors or whatever, that will house 90,000 people at each facility.
The problem is the problem is because of the type of doctrine they've always been running and the type of doctrine that they will continue to run, they can mobilize as many people as they want. They're still going to get shit training, shit equipment, shit, and the biggest problem for China right now is that 18 to 25-year-old generation is the let it rot generation. They don't give two shits about, communist China. And because they are not creating an atmosphere that makes that younger youth want to be part of that society, you can mobilize all of them. They're going to be shit soldiers.
There's a dude that's supposed to be like the duty expert on CCP in China. He's been on Rogan. I've seen him a bunch of places. And he was given a lecture, and he said, look, everybody thinks China has this great navy. He says, you could take China's biggest ship and put it in this building right here. He says, we just launched our new super carriers, and the super carrier alone can take on any other country just with the carrier. Not the carrier group, just the carrier has the ability to fight everybody other than the United States, Russia, and somebody else. But China wasn't even in there.
From a conventional standpoint, just conventional. Now, the only reason why China, here's the truth of the matter, is the only reason why China and Russia still exist is because they have nuclear weapons. Those are the handgun of nations, meaning it makes people very equal no matter how unequal they are. There's no country in the world that can go toe-to-toe conventional forces with the United States. We have more of everything. There's, again, 1,500 M1 Abrams just sitting in the desert, doing nothing, just hanging out in the desert.
1,500 or 1,000?
15.
It's more than 1,500.
It might be 15,000. Anyways, there's a ton of tanks. We have more frontline equipment than any other nation. You know, when you talk about even like fifth generation fighters, right? When you're talking about fifth generation fighters, and oh my God, the Russians have a fifth generation fighter and China has a fifth generation fighter. They've got 5. We've got 400. Like, it's not even a win. And what we're finding out with all this bullshit in Ukraine is we don't need a fifth generation fighter to knock out a Russian fifth generation aircraft. We could use a goddamn F-16. Hell, a fucking Warthog could probably shoot those things down.
You just need Tom Cruise.
Well, again, we do have premier pilots, premier technology, I mean, that's the one thing that's the one thing that people don't understand about the capitalist system is it's good to be the best. It's good to be the best F-18 pilot. It's good to be the best fucking F-22 pilot. It's good to be the best. And so those guys are competing, and those guys are fucking top notch. I mean, our pilots are top notch. Yeah. The real war fighters, the guys that are out there, the fucking ass in the grass, they're top notch. yes, wokeism is destroying some of that, but the reality is none of that woke shit will matter when the Chinese cross the fucking border. They won't. All those woke people will go home, and the real soldiers will go forward and fucking win the day.
It's all okay, man, because all of the pilots that flew over the Super Bowl were all girls.
That's why they were 20 minutes late.
That's why they were all in different airplanes.
That's why they were 20 minutes late.
It wasn't the Thunderbirds. It wasn't the Blue Angels. Did you see last comment here? I saw Elon Musk last night, or I saw it last night. I don't know when it was said. When he said, people keep asking me why I allowed Andrew Tate to be back on Twitter. And he said, I allowed Andrew Tate back on Twitter for the same reason I bought Twitter. He said, people came to Andrew Tate and offered him $1 billion to shut his mouth. And he said, no, I'm going to keep saying what I think is right. And Elon Musk said, I'm going to do the same thing.
Is he out of jail?
I don't believe he's out of jail, but they've lost. They have 2 witnesses against him, apparently. One has disappeared altogether, and the other has come out on video saying that she didn't say any of the shit they're saying she said.
Yeah, I saw.
He is in. They've seized all his shit. You have this nut Eliza Blue, who's gone on a bunch of shows, and she's like, I'm a trafficking advocate. I was trafficked myself, and I've spoken to the victims, and it's very true what they're saying. And these chicks are like, one's disappeared, and the other's like, we never even fucking spoke to this person. So this chick, Eliza Blue, all of her shit has unraveled. Come to find out, she was in like 13 World Star hip hop videos that she requested to be in. So World Star actually owns those. She was paid for her performances. She's changed. She's like this nut job. She's changed her name like 7 times on Instagram. She's talking about she had this fundraising, and she raised money to buy this 286-acre farm where she has this retreat for trafficking victims. Come to find out, her dad owns a 286-acre farm, and when you fly over it, there are no structures. It's all horse shit. She did these GoFundMes, send me on vacation so that I can recuperate and re-energize to be a better advocate, and her like GoFundMes made like $1,200. Like, so it's all. This was the big mouthpiece that was out there against him, and come to find out, all her shit is complete fucking unraveled in the last few days.
Yeah. I mean,
but they are still in custody. It does appear that they are now. Human rights advocates have gotten involved, which doesn't hold any water over there in Romania.
I seen her attorney. I seen an interview recently with her attorney,
with Tate's attorney, the female.
Female with Tate's attorney, and
she works for the human rights order.
I mean,
what she's saying sounds great.
Yeah, the stuff that she lays out is like
it doesn't hold any water.
What it sounds like to me is
somebody over here.
They rolled Tate up because of what he was saying. Because I actually think Tate fucked himself.
You see a lot of people right now saying, even from the White House, how do we unprogram? He has planted the seeds.
Yeah.
In these young men in high school and elementary school now, and we need to figure out how to deprogram these kids.
I actually think he fucked himself. I think he fucked himself when he did that podcast. It was his podcast, and he was talking about why he had to leave America and why he had to move to Romania, and that Romania would, that the rule of law still exists in Romania, and Romania would never come after him for some bullshit like they were trying to do in America. I think that's what fucked him. I think somebody, some DOJ person here in the United States saw that and was like,
got with an ambassador.
I'm pushing a button. Hey, where's he at? Hungary?
Romania.
I'm sure Joe Biden was actually on the phone and told the Romanian president, hey, you remember all that money we're getting ready to send you? We're not going to send you a fucking dime unless you roll them up.
It seems to me it's mostly women that are against him, right? And it's angry women, right? It's not married women or women in happy relationships. It's angry fucking women that are against him.
You have to create a reason to roll him up. That's the easy part. It's just like I said with the little FBI packet. Getting it on, literally they could get it on anyone's computer they want. If they want that fucking packet on the president's computer, it's going to get on that computer. They can do whatever they want.
That's all they have to say now, right?
Yeah, that's all they have to say
is child porn.
Child pornography.
Or they have taken everything to be prostitution is now trafficking, right? A chick can't just go set on the corner. They're going to turn it into trafficking.
Unless you're in California. They just the loitering laws that affect prostitution. They just canceled all the loitering laws, so the police can't roll prostitutes up anymore.
So when people are like, Tate did it, I'm like, maybe he didn't, right? They're like, well, what do you care? I'm going to tell you what I care here. When I was 20 years old, probably, I had this girlfriend in high school. Her name was Tiffany. And I was with Tiffany off and on for a couple of years. Tiffany usually left me. She was just a fucking whore, right? But Tiffany ends up marrying this guy and moves to Utah. So the internet comes to be or whatever. Somehow I get back in touch with Tiffany and talk to Tiffany, and she's like, hey, I'm coming back into town. I want to see you. Can I come stay with you? I'm leaving my husband. And I'm like, okay. So I meet up with Tiffany, and I live with my mom, right? So Tiffany is going to stay at my friend Mike's house. So Tiffany's at Mike's house. I go pick her up while I'm doing like delivery routes and shit, newspapers. So Tiffany hangs out with me. We go to the gas station where Eddie and Mike work.
Fucking gas station.
Yeah, it was literally like Clerks. The
gas
TV
station was cool.
The movie called Clerks was based on us at the gas station. So Tiffany is staying at Mike's house, and she's kind of stuck there. My girlfriend at the time, Chandra, works at Dream Girls, works at one of the strip clubs, right? So I'm like, hey, I'll get you a job over here. You can work as a waitress or whatever. So she goes down, and you have to do amateur night to have a job. So she does amateur night. They offer her a job. The next day, she's like, hey, I want to go see my mom. And I'm like, cool. I'm working. I'm not going to come get you. Call your mom, have her come get you or whatever. So Tiffany gets in it. I don't even realize this happened. Tiffany calls her mom. Her mom comes down and goes, what are you doing in San Diego? Because her mom still is in San Diego or California somewhere. So Tiffany's supposed to be married, has a kid living in Utah. Tiffany shows up here. She's like, what the fuck are you doing here? She's like, I've been here for a few days. They won't let me leave. Tiffany's mom comes, picks her up at the apartment where nobody is at, and she tells her mom that Mike and I have kept her hostage and will not let her leave. So the police automatically are called. Tiffany is with her mom. The SWAT team goes to Mike's house and arrests Mike at the house. A single police officer comes to the gas station. Is like, hey, John Willis, is that you? I'm like, yep. You're under arrest. Don't know why. They put us in jail over the weekend. They've got Mike. And Mike is like, we didn't do this, right? And we've always said, if you ever get arrested, don't say shit to the police. Right. So I'm like, I got nothing to say, lawyer. I got nothing to say, lawyer. We're arrested for rape in concert and a couple of other things with these charges. So Monday, all of a sudden, I'm getting dressed out, right? I don't know what the fuck's going on. They've dropped the charges. They're going to release us. There's Mike. Mike's like, why didn't you fucking tell him the truth? I go, you always said if we got in trouble, fucking don't say anything. Lawyer, right? That's what we'd always heard, right? I saw all the movies. So he's like, they would have let us go. So here's what happened. Tiffany is just a hoe. I've got a girlfriend. Mike's got a girlfriend. Mike's girlfriend's having sex with Tiffany. Everybody's fucking Tiffany. Tiffany's just like she always was, just a hoe. We made videos of it. And I had a video camera, and I'm like, hey, say hi to your husband, just being an asshole, right? She's like, that's what saved me. That's what got us out of it. Why, because
she said hi?
She's like, because the female police officer, the detective said, we reviewed these videos, and what saved you is when you said, hey, say hi to your husband. Tiffany turned around, smiled, and said, hi, Dan, right? Clearly, she was not being held captive. Clearly, she was not being forced into any of these situations. And you guys had videos of several people having sex individually, and it was all consensual. That's what saved my ass from a rape charge. So I always question when they're like, Andrew Tate did this, right? Well, where's your witness at, right? So that's why, because I was in that situation, and they fucking booked us in on a Friday night, and they took fucking DNA and swabs and shit. And the only thing that saved my ass was that we were crude and fucking assholes and had fucking video of her doing nasty shit.
Yeah, I think, because the reality is when they rolled up, trafficking is the new,
it's the new thing. Yeah,
trafficking is the
new kiddie porn.
It's the new kiddie porn, right? Because when they rolled Tate up, I immediately went, fucking dude got too deep with the mob. I immediately thought, because of his casino connections and him talking about having to go through the mob in order to have those casinos, I'm like, he got too deep with them, and that is what's fucking dragging him down. And when they said trafficking, I'm like, that's like a bullshit. Like, the reality is,
here's what a lot of people
that's like
don't
a
realize.
bullshit.
So they actually raided his place.
Yeah.
2 years prior or 6 months prior. I think it was 2 years prior, right? After the fact, when they didn't arrest him and they couldn't arrest him or whatever, he had the girls on. The girls that were in question, they were on videos with him.
Yes.
Prior to this. They were on there with him, right?
I saw a video that his brother was showing of one of the girls on her phone, and he's like, this is where we got in trouble because this girl is texting her husband right now.
Yep. So she was on the boat.
Yeah.
She was drinking on the boat, was with Tate for a few days, and her husband, her dude, said she's been abducted.
Yeah.
And it's the same shit, man.
It's just crazy.
They go do shady shit, get caught, and then they make it as though they're not themselves. But these girls didn't even do that, apparently.
It's crazy because the truth of the matter is the laws aren't the same in Romania as they are here. And so with the amount of publicity,
it's because the US is involved.
Yeah, with the amount of publicity and the amount of people who showed up to arrest him, 100%, I guarantee you, the Biden administration, someone in the administration, whether it was Joe or not, was like, you don't arrest him, you're not getting any fucking aid money.
Yeah, it's gonna be
you don't arrest him, you don't get any aid money.
It's an angry. It's like the kiddie porn is falling under the trafficking thing right now. They're one and the same, right? We've changed the terminology, and it's the same thing with like the LGBTQ LMNOP. When you talk to most gay people, gay, lesbian, homosexual, they're like, we don't have anything to do with this other stuff over here. This part that you guys have added, the elephant, the rainbow, and the fucking unicorn, that's not us.
Yeah,
right?
if you see the best explanation, I think the one I love the most is
they've co-opted it.
Is when Dave Chappelle talks about the gay man and the lesbian in the station wagon driving down the street, and they have to pick up all the other letters. It's actually pretty funny.
I've not seen it.
It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny how he explains it. Pretty good.
All right, guys. Well, that is Pulling the Thread podcast episode, what?
15.
15. If you're listening to this, you're in the membership. The first level membership is $1. The second level is $4.99, and the third level is $10. I think it's $9.99. And what you get for $9.99 is the Pulling the Thread podcast. You get it very quickly. Typically, if you're able to hear them, they're 4, 5, 6 weeks behind. If you're at the high level, the what is it called? Is it current events? I think is what we're calling it.
Current events.
$9.99. You hear this podcast within a few days, so it's more of a current event, current times thing. Otherwise, if you don't care, then you hear it, weeks later. So currently, that's the incentive to join the third level. If you got any questions, you can leave comments. We'll start doing some comments where we interact with your questions or comments. Just leave them on this video. When we told them that if they wanted to hear about the riots, a lot of people said they did. So in the future, soon here,
get the questions, ask questions, and I'll tell you all about the time I was in LA eating the best Mexican food humanly possible.
Almost killed a fool in a lowrider.
Almost killed 4 fools in a lowrider. I mean, they were so close to just getting sprayed down. And again, I for some of you have heard the story before when that was happening, when my 2 Marines were about to hose this car down, I was like, "Hey guys, what's going on? What's going on?" I had no clue what was about to happen, and if it wouldn't have been for the split thinking of the Marine in question, Crips are the blue headbands, right?
Yeah.
Those Crips do not know how close they came to just getting fucking annihilated. Because I know if Kirk would have started shooting, Warden would have started shooting. Warden was in the back, quarter. Kirk was right next to the driver's door. If Kirk would have started shooting, Warden would have started shooting, and I would have started shooting because I'd have been like, what the fuck's going on? So that car would have got fucking smoke checked. It would have been bad for everybody inside. But, Kirk was...
Anybody have belt fed, or were you guys?
No, it was all
M16s?
M16s. Yeah, it was all M16. I mean, I had my sniper rifle, my fucking we had way too much shit for what we were doing. But
right on.
Yep.
All right, guys. Hope you got something from that, and if it entertains you in any manner, tell some people about it. If it educated you in any manner, tell us what you learned. Equip, I guess, special operations equipment. We do a t-shirt every week. We've got some stuff coming for Pulling the Thread also. If you can see this fine
yes,
High Point
Champagne of Pistols.
High Point Firearms, the Champagne of Pistols. We're going to put that on a shirt.
Yep.
A lot of people are really mad about that. I know a lot of people know the inside and how funny it is. So
yeah,
you can troll your buddies with it.
Glocks suck.
Do you have a High Point firearm?
Should I say that? I mean, I'm talking so much... I'm giving so much love for...
Do you own a High Point?
No.
It was pointed out to me that we know somebody who does own a High Point.
Do we?
Dirty Curtis.
Does he really?
Cody said Dirty Curtis has a High Point rifle.
Oh, he may have one of those rifles.
That stupid,
Yeah, he may have one of those, the rifle that kind of looks like a space gun.
Yeah, like the Kel-Tec that folds in half. Looks like that.
Yeah.
It looks like there was a bed frame. It looks like there was a bed frame in the rusty pile of metal, and they made a gun out of it. That's the High Point rifle.
Now that High Point has the Yeet cannon, I might get the Yeet cannon.
Yeet. People voted on that. Did they actually name it that?
I don't think so.
All right, guys. We will see you next time.
We're like, please don't cut down these trees to make paper bags. And so they're like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to outlaw paper bags. And we got rid of a 100% renewable resource in paper bags to make plastic bags. We've waited too long to understand that plastic bags are worse for the environment because they're a non-renewable resource that's made out of oil. And now they're trying to ban plastic bags. A lot of municipalities are banning plastic bags. But what are they doing? Are they going back to the renewable resource that is good for the planet? No. What they're doing is they're making multiple use plastic bags. So instead of a one-use plastic bag, you have a plastic bag that you use 2 or 3 times. It's not helping the environment whatsoever. It's ridiculous. It's
like your throwaway Tupperware, right? Have you seen the throwaway Rubbermaid containers, right? They're microwavable. Most of the ones you buy right now, they're supposed to be disposable, but you can use them.
All those meal prep ones you just throw away. Why would you? We used to have this thing called paper bags.
But look at all the BPA's that are going into your body. Like a lot of people are saying that you should not even drink from plastic. Like don't even drink out of bottled water. Like they say that every person in the United States has a credit card's worth of plastic in their body
microplastics.
with the microplastics.
I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy when you think about the new Green Deal and all this thing that the left thinks they're doing. And the reality is everything that they're pushing is going to be worse for the planet than what we're doing currently. Anyways,
all right.
Let's go back. Oh, are we on?
Starbucks communist. You're absolutely right. I use a Starbucks cup because I can see how much is in here. And a lot of times I can knock this over and my juice, right? My gin and juice, it don't fall out, right? I can drop this off of my sewing machine from vibration, hit the floor, and the lid stays on. It's really tight. And then I use a bigger bore straw. We have bought some straws off Amazon. I used to use a McDonald's straw because the McDonald's straws are bigger. So when I drink more. I've tried I have every bottle in the world, right? Corksicle and Yeti, and everybody gives me fucking things that they destroy the center consoles in my Porsche and my Range Rover. That metal just fucking is so huge. And then you have this huge thing in your hand that really has half the volume. This cup holds more liquid than any of those special tumblers that they're badass. They're multicam black, guys laser them, they're neat. I hate metal on my teeth, right? I like a straw. I can knock it over, it doesn't fall out, and I don't have to unscrew stuff. When I have a bottle of water, I'll drink a third of the water in a day. When I have this, I've got a giant Berkey filter. I fill it up. I put whatever flavoring, aminos in it, or whatever stimulants or non-stims I'm going to put in here. And I probably drink 12 to 16 of these a day. So by the time at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock before we start this podcast, I've been going since 4 o'clock. So I've had at least 5 of these, whatever these are. I don't even know how big this is. I think it's 24 ounces. But that's why I use those. So I don't know why I'm not this. I'm probably really sick. I'm about to die or something because my body's holding all the moisture.
You were dehydrated. That's all.